I made a huge, tiny mistake.
Climate and everything are the same word.
Could you drum up?
Thanks, Jeff, for the question.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Close it up just like my wife's vagina.
What?
Oh, it never occurred to me.
Interesting.
It's just crazy enough to work.
Yeah.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed!
That's hot. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Your name, please?
Could you drum up?
There's no point in you betraying your future self to gratify your present self. It's a stupid game.
It's science.
Fucking bitch.
You should be ashamed of yourself for having that thought.
I see that you know your judo.
Well, here we are again. In space station. Speaking into the void. Always so much to do, so little time. Suppose we better get right to it. Buckle up those seatbelts, space fans. About to take a little road trip through crazy abyss we call Earth and space. Well, it's good to see you all. Seeing all sorts of people in here already. Selena Marie. Monoa FG. Mrs. Jen, Robot Cat, Aaron W. Looney Tunes. Jerry McLean. Aaron W. I think I already said Aaron W. You get two Aaron W's. Yeah. Everybody else in here is Nick Zabea. Okay. Well, this first story is quite disturbing. As a 13-year-old child was shot and killed by the police in Utica, New York. Those very police are saying that he pointed a replica gun at officers.
Rid of the Second Amendment?
Well, turning now to developing news we are following out of Utica overnight. A 13-year-old who police say pointed a pellet gun at officers chasing him was shot and killed by police last night. It's still limited information at this time. It was a chaotic news conference this morning where Utica Police Chief Mark Williams said he was not ready to describe what initial incident caused officers to stop the 13-year-old and another person.
Oh, they weren't ready. They weren't ready to describe it. I wonder why. I'm sure that it was totally normal reasons. Didn't the same thing happen last week? I know we've covered other stories where people who had BB guns were shot by police. This is just another example of that. It's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. And there's not much detail in this story as of yet.
We don't know yet if this was another adult or someone who was underage. Now, when officers tried to stop the pair just before 10:30 last night on Shaw Street, the teen, we're told, ran away. Police claimed during the chase, quote, what appeared to be a handgun was pointed at the officer. The chief giving a few more details here, adding the weapon was determined to be a replica Glock 17 Gen 5 handgun with a detachable magazine. The chief also calling it a pellet gun. Utica.
Wait, which one is it? Is it a replica? It's a very confusing story here, but it sounds like it's just a BB gun, which didn't present any danger to anyone. Soul Life banned you. What? Is this true, my dogs? Unbelievable. Just unacceptable. Soul Life, what do you have to say for yourself? Okay, we're gonna talk about a couple of things here. Actually, hold on. We have one other one I want to go to.
Michael Galimi also addressing the gathering during this morning's conference on the matter.
What are you doing?
And through this press conference, the reason we're...
Settle down, pal. Soul, I've told you he'd do it again. Disgusting. Sacre bleu. Quoi ce life? Okay, one more thing to look at in terms of recent cases of gun violence in America, which we could solve, but we don't. This is in Philadelphia, so not far from Utica. Suspects sought after two teenagers shot while, I think, walking home from school or something. I can't remember what it was. Something like that. So I'll just start blending together in my fucking head. Whoopsies. Go back.
Overnight gunfire that ended with two teenagers in the hospital. Shots were fired on the 2100 block of North Fairhill Street in Kensington, where both victims were attending a party. They were struck by the gunfire as they tried to run away from the violence. Action News reporter Charles Watson is following the story. He joins us live outside police headquarters with details tonight. Charles.
Yeah, hey, good evening, Walter. We spoke to several neighbors off camera who tell us they are really surprised to hear that a shooting happened in that section of North Fairhill Street because it's normally a quiet block. Instead, it was quite the opposite overnight, according to Philadelphia police. Investigators say around 12:30 this morning, officers responded to reports of a person with a gun on the 2100 block of North Fairhill Street when they found two teenagers suffering from gunshot wounds. We're told a 16-year-old male victim was hit twice in the chest and buttock.
So yeah, two people shot. Thankfully, they're both still alive. But I really wish people would stop shooting at each other all the time. We are number 2 for gun violence in the world. Just wild. You're from Philly? Interesting. Thankfully, you're safe, which is good. What was I saying? Alright, now let's look at some of the after effects of gun violence and other sorts of things surrounding it, if you will. I think first we'll start with this one. We'll just go from one coast to the other. This is in California, NBC Bay Area. We actually discussed this the day that it happened. What's number 1? Brazil. Brazil is number 1 for gun violence. We're number 2, and then Mexico's number 3. If I'm not mistaken, I think I've got those numbers right in my head. Then everybody else is much more sane. Okay, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, California. Let's go to California, where a shooting victim is speaking out on NBC here. Like I was saying before, we looked at this shooting, or at least the aftermath of the shooting, the day after it happened. This was on Juneteenth at a party that was essentially like happening in the street. It wasn't sanctioned party, but the, you know, like it was. If I'm not mistaken, it was involving. Actually, maybe it was a no. This might have actually been a. I can't remember now. God damn it. Whatever, I think they have the details in the story, but I could have sworn this was either a party or an actual, like, festival for Juneteenth. Unfortunately, I think, like, a dozen people were shot. So what was this, like a week ago?
New at 11, he survived, but he is facing an uncertain future. Tonight, one of the victims of the mass shooting near Lake Merritt is speaking out about that terrifying night. At least 15 people were shot after a Juneteenth celebration, and Mason Ma is one of those victims. NBC Bay Area's Jocelyn Moran joins us now. And Jocelyn, he has a long road recovery ahead.
Yeah, Audrey, he does. He's already had 2 surgeries, and he tells us he has at least a couple of more ahead. Mason had parked his car near Lake Merritt and was walking to get food at a place he goes to often when he started to hear gunfire.
I just want to feel safe in the neighborhood that I work in.
Tonight, Mason Ma is recovering at the hospital after he was shot 3 times near Lake Merritt on June 19th on his way to get food.
I see a sideshow going on, and all of a sudden...
You need 2 support characters? I can see that. I can see that. Also, I noticed that Omega Star got first, and that, oh, Noah just got second on Twitch. Alright, we got Captain Planet. And Archer. Oh god. Archer's like directly in front of Buddy Jesus on a Raptor. Who's that? Robot Monkey Cat with 3rd. Well played. Well played. Got in there just under the wire. Yes, the web of misery and grief that grows from every gun violence victim and shooting.
Someone started shooting, I heard a sound, and then it was a little chaotic. People started running, and then I felt my first shot in my first.
And look at this, I mean, this guy just was about to, you know, I think he was about to point with his finger, but that finger's fucking gone now. Just it's just so frustrating. Ugh. And like I was saying, I think at least 12 people were shot on this day. I think maybe 1 person died. I don't think they talk about it in this story. I just remember it happening. Yeah, no, I read that. Sorry. Oh, trying to do too many things at once. What's next? Ah, yes. Let's go to this. In case you missed it yesterday, I figured we would talk about this again, as another story has just recently come out about this. This is from CBS News from 14 hours ago, where family members reacted to the arrest of Uvalde Police Chief Pete Arredondo. How do you say that? Arredondo? I think it's Arredondo. I need to wear my glasses some days.
We're getting new details about the first people to be charged over the failed law enforcement response to the Uvalde, Texas school mass shooting. More than 2 years after a gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School, a grand jury issued a 10-count indictment against former Uvalde School Police Chief Pete Arredondo. Janet Shamlian spoke with family members who lost loved ones that day.
Former Uvalde School Police Chief Pete Arredondo facing justice. A grand jury Thursday charging him with failing to act as a gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School.
Wait, Chief is in there. Chief's in charge right now. Hold on.
The felony indictment accuses Arredondo of
Yeah,
delaying the
that's a
response
pretty
by law enforcement officers.
indicting
as
statement
the gunman
right
was
there. Oh, the chief is in charge. Okay, pal. Have I ever worn my glasses during stream? Yes. Yes, but like only for portions of it, because I feel like, I don't know, it fucks with my eyes when I wear them for too long. It's weird. I'm bad at wearing glasses though. That's the reality of it, and I just continue to squint and or move closer to the monitor. The worse it gets. It's a bad strategy. It's such a bad strategy. It's hard to call it a strategy.
Hunting and shooting children. The indictment says he failed to identify this as an active shooter incident, to enforce the district's own active shooter response plan, and to provide keys that would have allowed officers to quickly enter the classroom. 77 minutes went by as the carnage continued. Arredondo was taken into custody at the Uvalde County Jail and released after posting $10,000 bail. A second officer, Adrian Gonzalez, was also indicted and turned himself into authorities on Friday.
After more than 2 years, what is this moment like for you?
I've got mixed emotions because I'm happy that Arredondo and Gonzalez are facing these charges, but also that's just a step. There needs to be more.
Yeah.
Brett Cross's
Exactly.
10-year-old, Uzziah Garcia, was killed in the attack.
There's got to be more. There's your fall guy. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's not just those two guys, right? Because there was, I don't remember the exact number, but I think there was like 100 officers outside of the school on the day this happened.
It was Jesse Rizzo's niece, Jackie Cazares.
It's an emotional day. It's something that we've been waiting for a long time.
Do you think there will be more indictments?
I hope so. I made Uzi a promise that I would never let anything bad happen to him, and I got made a liar. So I have to fight so that no other kids meet the same fate that he did, so that no...
Is it 400? Is that true? I feel like in my head that always just sounds too high. And I'm just like, yeah, it's like 100. But if that's right, because I've heard that over and over again, I feel like it must be true. I'm just like, it just doesn't sound right. How is that possible? 400 officers and nobody did anything? 400? Even for one person. That's what, 0.25% of the people just needed to do something and none of them did anything? Come on. So yeah, 2 is not enough. Just like this guy's saying. But we also need a massive change in gun culture in this country, right? That is gonna be a huge part of it. Not that the police aren't, at fault for their negligence and their, cowardice, and they're just kind of standing there doing nothing. But we could, in fact, start trying to do preventative things around these things rather than just, basically leaving it up to police, saying, no more guns. America, this is a bad experiment, and we're sorry we did this. It was a bad call. It's been 200 years, and it's just, up until more recently, like, what was it, when did it peak? I think gun violence deaths specifically peaked in, I want to say 21, right? And they've been coming down for the last like 2-ish years, somewhere around there. But once again, we're number 2 in the world, and it's been long enough, right? Even if things are tapering off a little bit, it's a failed experiment in this particular instance. Okay, now one last discussion of this, I guess, because this statistic is just wild, and it's honestly it's in line with my expectations of what it probably is. Although I'll be honest, it's a little higher than I was expecting. This is high. PBS NewsHour 5 hours ago. Frequent gun violence near school grounds harms millions of kids. Now, when they say harms, they're talking about their their mental health, right? There are millions of kids being actively shot a year, but it's about their well-being, if you will.
This week, the Surgeon General declared gun violence a public health crisis. He cited the estimated 50,000 Americans who die every year in gun-related incidents. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been more than 8,200 gun deaths so far this year, nearly 700 of them children and teens. With school shootings on the rise over the past 2 decades, children and parents are increasingly worried about the safety inside the classroom. But as William Brangham tells us, a new analysis finds that more and more incidents of gun violence are happening just beyond school walls.
From 2014 to 2023, communities across the country saw more than 188,000 shootings within 500 yards of a school. That is an average of 57 shootings per day.
That is
This
insane.
comes from a new analysis done by
That
The
is
Trace,
fucking
which is a
insane.
nonprofit news organization that covers gun violence. Analyzing data from almost 150,000 public and private schools, The Trace found that just last year, 6 million kids had a shooting occur near their school. Olga Pierce is one of the journalists who did this analysis. Olga, thank you so much for being here and sharing this.
Hold on, I'm trying to think of what that represents in terms of the child population in the United States. 6 million. It's 300 million adults. Not adults, like 300 plus million Americans. I would assume there's like, what, like 100 and... How many? I might as well just Google it. That's not how you spell or type. Ah, God. 74 million. I was overestimating. Okay. That's nearly 10% of kids. Holy fuck. In 1 year.
Really tremendous piece of reporting with us. When we think about school shootings, I think most people think of the massacres that happen, Newtown, Uvalde, Columbine, etc. But you guys chose to broaden the lens and look at shootings outside of schools. Why that focus?
Obviously, school shootings inside the school building are a traumatic and dramatic event, and they deserve our attention. But those are very rare compared to the frequency of shootings we found around schools. And something we had heard anecdotally from teachers in our reporting was, I wish that we could take some of this attention and these resources we're taking to prepare for shootings in the school and devote them to protecting kids outside the school.
Yeah, we can also dedicate some of those resources to some of the things we've been talking about as well. But yeah, my dogs, it's great to see you. And yes, the Pride stickers are here. I think they started them just like on the first day of June. Like, 'cause I've been seeing them all over YouTube. It's sad that you're just showing up now. But I mean, of course, I hope that the stickers will stay around after Pride Month. I don't know. That's going to be up to YouTube, I suppose. But, yeah. They're now immediately accessible whenever you click the emote button. It's very exciting. Okay, alright. We talked enough about gun violence already today. We have punished ourselves enough. Let's move on to some stuff. Specifically, Pride, like we were just talking about. This is, I guess we'll start, yeah, we're gonna go west coast to east coast. Let's start in San Francisco.
Officially Pride weekend in San Francisco. Hundreds of thousands of people expected in the city this weekend, with lots of people attending the big parade on Sunday. Let's check in now with Crowd 4's Tiffany Justice. She's downtown with a preview of the fun happening today.
Right, today starts Pride weekend and organizers have many events to keep people busy. Today, bright and early, they are holding a breakfast event called Pride for Breakfast here at the Civic Center Plaza. This entire block has been blocked off for this event today and tomorrow, including the big parade. Now, organizers say that this is an inclusive event today to celebrate health in the community. Coffee will be served to energize you, along with some food to nourish your body.
It's a health and movement focused event. So we have a yoga class, a Vogue class, we've got coffee, breakfast, giveaways, and it's just a really exciting way to start the weekend. Kick off Pride with kind of a good reprieve of exercise and health and community. We are at Civic Center Plaza. We're right in front of our beautiful city hall here, and we're actually, for the whole celebration, we're kind of taking over the whole area. So we've got a lot of blocks of vendors and booths and sponsors and things like that. But yeah, we're right here in the center of San Francisco.
Now, after the breakfast, programming is going to start here on the main stage at 8:30. There's going to be a yoga class held here, and then at 9:30, there's going to be a dance workout class. So Pride weekend in full swing, bright and early this morning. Again, we are at Civic Center Plaza. The block has been blocked.
Doesn't even look like the sun is up yet. It's like barely up. You can kind of tell the angle that it's at. It's like basically on the horizon. They're like, oh, we got to get out of here now. Now. What is it, 5:30? Yeah, it was a yoga class. / what was it again? What was the other one? I don't know. Either way, they're enjoying the city and Pride weekend. Well, Pride month, but I think it's also technically Pride weekend for San Francisco and a bunch of other places. What was I doing? Ah, yes. Moving to this, I found this story to be great. This is from Associated Press from 22 hours ago, where a San Francisco bookstore has shipped donated LGBTQ+ books to conservative states.
I'm not a legislator, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not able to go to school board meetings in Florida or Texas.
Tried to put it on the ballot to get rid of it. They failed in their attempt to do so, and the program has grown dramatically.
What just happened? What was that?
Places where these books are needed, and I can ship them. There are amazing communities in rural Alabama and rural Oklahoma and small town Florida, and phenomenal people doing really hard work and risking so much to do it. I sent a box to a center in the South, and I just checked in on them, and I'm like, hey, I just want to see how you're doing. And they said, well, we've had to move twice because we got a whole lot of death threats. George M. Johnson, he wrote All Boys Aren't Blue, which is one of the most...
They had to move twice because they've gotten a whole lot of death threats. How lovely. How convenient and great.
Books in America donated 20 copies. So we've had a lot of community support.
We opened the first LGBT center in this town, and Polk County, where we live, is Central Florida. It's in between Tampa and Orlando. So I wanted to make sure that when we did this, we had a space here in the center that banned books were available. And I think I started posting it, and then this amazing organization, this amazing bookstore in San Francisco contacted us, and we're like, hey, we've seen all the stuff that you've gone through in Florida. Can we send you some books? And I told them, yes, give me a couple months. Let me get the center open. And bam, this is what's happened. These bans.
I'm trying to think of it. The only thing I can come up with right now is that it feels like a quasi underground railroad for banned books. Woke books, exactly, Mo Megastar. Yes, the underground railroad of woke books. Do death threats make kids not gay? That's a good question. I feel like that's a question that people making those threats should perhaps consider first, but I feel like that would require a certain amount of critical thinking that if you possessed would probably lead you to make entirely different decisions. Okay, let's look at a slightly frustrating story relating to Pride Month, because in the middle of the country, Colorado, authorities are searching for 2 suspects right now who are wanted for ripping down pride flags from homes. How many of these have we heard this year? Granted, it's the end of the month, so we haven't been exactly inundated with these stories. We've seen at least like a half dozen of these. And I think I'm being conservative.
Right now, Aurora police are looking for a pair of vandals seen on doorbell cameras tearing pride flags off of homes. Good evening, I'm Kelly Worthman. Thank you for joining us here on CBS Colorado. That vandalism comes at the tail end of LGBTQ Pride Month and just days before a state law is expanded that would add more protections for Coloradans in bias-motivated and harassment crimes. Your reporter in Aurora, Michael Abeda, joining us now from the neighborhood where this happened. Michael?
Yeah, Kelly, as you mentioned, it is Pride Month, but this is a reminder that hate and discrimination takes no holiday. Aurora police officers are looking for 2 suspects they say are involved in a bias-motivated vandalism. They say on June 22nd, the pair ripped off pride flags off of 2 houses near the 10,000 block of East 7th Avenue and 700 Galena Street. Police say they also damaged a vehicle by keying it and slashing a tire, and broke the window of one of the homes by throwing a rock through it. This comes just before a law passed in this year's legislature that adds transgender identity to the classes identified in bias-motivated crimes and harassment, and redefines sexual orientation for purposes of bias-motivated crimes as a person's orientation towards sexual or emotional attraction and the behavior or social affiliation that may result from the. Now, police say the suspects were last seen near 170 Fulton Street. That's just a couple of blocks away from here. If anybody in those photos looks familiar, you're asked to call Aurora Police.
Okay. Ugh. Makes me sad. It does sound like a hate crime, but I don't think it's law in Colorado yet. They don't know if they'll be able to go back, what's the word? I'll just go back in time and do that. I know there's a legal word for doing such a thing, but I can't think of it right now. I'll allow it. Okay. What was I doing now? Alright, one last story about Pride before we move on. Retroactively. Thank you. That's very helpful. This is on the other side of the country, in Tennessee, where hundreds of volunteers came out to paint Nashville's first rainbow crosswalk.
It's been a long time in the making, and it's finally becoming a reality.
So we'll have normal crosswalks here, but we'll have rainbows that are vertical between each one of them.
Nashville's first ever rainbow crosswalk.
And to have it be shown in public, on the street, have it be vibrant, is just so meaningful.
This crowd just keeps getting larger and larger.
Located on 14th Street in Woodland, owned by the city.
Anytime that we need to do something on a state road, we have to get permission from the state to do it.
In front of the lesbian-owned bar, the Lipstick Lounge.
I love this queer community in East Nashville,
where Kennedy Ann Scott performs.
I think it's very important that we show the world that we are an amazing community and that we come out and we support everyone who is in our community and outside of our community.
Most of these community members came out in support.
When people see this crosswalk, they know that they can come into Nashville and that it's not going to be like the larger state.
There were a few evangelists against it.
God made them man and woman.
But their voices weren't louder than the volunteers. A lesson Allie Pitts wanted her daughter to learn.
I think it's important she knows there's support in the community even when she's hearing negative voices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the real sentiment that's important, right? Is that, you know, having these sorts of very small bits of representation and support are, in fact, important. I'm not saying that they fix everything. There's a bunch of stuff that needs to go along with this kind of thing, but the acceptance, in society, this is very important as it comes to pride. It's kind of the point. Okay, let's go on to talking about some people who, let's be real, have real problems with pride. Fuck him and his god. I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah. The bearded man yelling. Alright, what was I saying? Ah, yes, talking about some people.
This week, the debate over religion...
hold on, you're going too fast for me. I was talking about the people who got some significant problems with... Not problem. Sorry, I'm so distracted right now today. with the Jesus tee. Was it a Jesus tee? I didn't even notice the t-shirt. I was too offended by his decision to come yell at people and tell them how they needed to be according to a book written whatever it was 1,000 years ago or something. You're just gonna have to go out and protest the heteros then. That's true. You gotta write your own book or find another book that tells them that they're wrong and tell them all about that book. What's it doing? Yes. Transitioning to governmental related stuff, but I figured this was the best way to do that. This is from PBS NewsHour from 5 hours ago, discussing the key points in the debate over public funding for religious schools.
Publicly supported schools has been playing out in Oklahoma. The state school superintendent mandated that public schools teach the Bible and 10 Commandments. Days before, the state Supreme Court blocked what would have been the nation's first religious charter school. While the Supreme Court has been opening the door wider for public money to flow into religious schools, a lot is already going through school voucher programs. A Washington Post analysis concluded that nationwide, the vast majority of school voucher money is going to religious schools. We get two perspectives on this. Robert Enlow is president of CEO of Ed.
We have 30 likes now? Okay, what was that? We already have that, right? Hold on. Yeah, we already have Captain Planet. 15. Who's 15? The Pink Panther. God, the middle is getting very busy. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to do this. There we go. Okay, so they bring on two opposing sides of this. I think we can all assume what this one guy is going to say.
Choice, a nonprofit school voucher advocacy group. And Richard Katsky is the director of Duke University's Appellate Litigation Clinic and the former vice president of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Richard, let me start with you. Should money from public school voucher programs be able to go to private religious schools?
There are all sorts of problems with money going to private schools. One of the big ones is that when money goes to private religious schools, those schools, and by the way, all private schools that take vouchers, can pick and choose which students they will allow to attend.
Absolutely.
They won't serve kids with disabilities because they're more expensive to go there. They won't serve kids of different faiths. They'll make the kids and the family sign statements of faith and agree to live according to them. If you have an LGBTQ student or a student whose parents are a same-sex couple.
It's almost like they're religious institutions.
The schools can say, we don't want your kind here, we won't let you do that. It's really about schools making choices, not about parents making choices.
Robert Enlow, schools making choices rather than parents making choices. What do you say to that?
What we know in...
You know, I say we skip Robert Enlow because we know what he's going to say. Oh, we need God. We need more God in the schools. Oh, God. This is what I get paid to say. I love God, and all children need more faith in the 10 Commandments in the schools, and all the woke moralists are coming for our society, and that's why we need the society to fund our shit.
Any First Amendment Establishment Clause concerns about this, about these voucher funds going to private religious schools?
Sure. So look, the Supreme Court has said that if you have a system of true private choice, that where there are actually real options for people, then the money going to the parents and turning around and using it at a private religious school doesn't cause a federal constitutional problem. Might well cause state constitutional problems, but it's also the case that the Supreme Court premised that idea on there being real options for everybody. My family is Jewish. If I live in a community where there aren't any Jewish schools, yeah, sure, Robert is right that I could send my kids to a Catholic school to get a Catholic education or a Baptist school to get a Baptist education, but that's not really a reasonable choice for most people. It's also a funny thing to talk about the way that the public is hungry for these programs when school vouchers have been on ballot initiatives going all the way back to about 1972, and not a single time has the public ever voted in favor of a voucher program. Right now in Nebraska, they put in a tuition tax credit program last year, the legislature. So the people, the public, actually rose up and got the signatures to put a ballot measure for the state election to ask the question, should we get rid of that program? It
sounds like they're wildly unpopular with most people.
Legislature, which gets a ton of money from billionaires pushing voucher agendas, turned around and made little niggling changes to the statute so that they could say, oh, now it's not the same statute, so you can't challenge it, you can't bring it up in a ballot initiative. This isn't about the public. This is about billionaires financing an agenda that includes defunding and deconstructing, taking apart the public schools, and pushing a particular religious agenda that...
Yeah, absolutely. Your state is pushing for that. There's a bunch of states been pushing for this. And we need to we need to put an end to funding private schools, right? It's like when we give private corporations money, except, you know, in this case, there's clear, what do you call it? Legislation, right? That's supposed to say, that says that we're supposed to be separating church and state, and yet we're funding private religious organizations to do whatever the fuck they want. And it's not a good plan. It needs to stop. Fund yourself. If it's so wanted by society will fund it, like the way that with the capitalism people are always cheering on about, right? Just get the capitalists to come and fund it with dollars. Don't ask the government, big government. Oh my God, crazy. What? You don't want big government in your church school. Silly. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. Let's go to this. This was a pretty disturbing story here. This is from New York, where a lawsuit is now alleging that a Rochester man died after EMTs denied medical care to him. If the churches paid their taxes, they'd be broke. They certainly wouldn't be able to buy all those G6s and things I see these televangelists flying around in.
A lawsuit has been filed in Rochester following the death of a man kicked out of an ambulance in the city last year when he was going through a medical emergency. This suit comes from the estate of Julian Coleman. In November, he was forced off this AMR ambulance and collapsed on the sidewalk. He laid there on the ground for several minutes before any other first responder checked on him. The family says Coleman never regained consciousness after this, adding he was diagnosed with anoxic brain injuries. That's a lack of oxygen getting to the brain. He died 2 weeks later. The lawsuit puts the blame on the first responders that night, accusing them of violating the civil rights of Coleman. The estate is seeking damages for Coleman's physical and emotional pain in his death that followed. The city and AMR staff say they will not comment on pending litigation. We know one AMR worker was fired after this. 2 others were ordered to go through.
Yeah, and the police should also be. They're right there, too. They were fine with it. They were just standing there while this man died. Everybody here is at fault, okay? Anybody with a fucking brain doesn't do what just happened, okay? This is fucking disgusting. Those people all have responsibilities, legal responsibilities. that should, what's the word? Override any sort of immunity that, you know, police officers receive. This is ridiculous. We keep seeing just wildly negligent behavior from cops. And in this case, it's a combination of cops and the capitalist medical system which we all live in, right? These EMTs work for a corporation. That corporation needs to make money. This guy, well, not worth it. That's the determination they made. SCOTUS will overturn this. Ugh. Too close to the truth again. Let's go to this here. Talk about some other healthcare related stuff. This is from Associated Press from a day ago, where a lower Supreme Court in Iowa has told even lower court to let abortion law go into effect. And brace yourself. What's about to be said is going to frustrate everyone here, including myself, I think.
This is a monumental win for Iowa women, for Iowa families, for babies.
Jesus, I say that.
A baby is a unique and distinct person from its mother, and it deserves protection.
This woman seems fucking terrible.
I mean, this woman is dangerous, ladies and gentlemen.
Under our law. And that's exactly what this heartbeat ruling will do.
Ew.
Abortion hurts women and is never...
So yeah, this is the heartbeat law, which essentially makes, I think, any abortion after, what is it? Is it like 2 weeks? I don't know. I don't remember what it is. Is it 6 weeks? I think maybe this is 6 weeks. But either way, this is fucking disgusting. Okay? This woman is a demon.
This heartbeat ruling will do. Abortion hurts women and is never necessary. And so
never necessary?
For Iowa women.
That is just bullshit. That's factually inaccurate. Okay? That is a fucking lie. They're never necessary? That's just wrong. It's literally wrong. Unless she just thinks that women's lives aren't important. Right?
And for babies in our state.
Uh-huh.
You absolutely
I mean,
have
fetuses.
the public support. Iowa is a pro-life state.
Fetus rights,
and
everybody.
That is spoken loud and clear by our Republican control, not just a majority, but a supermajority in both the Senate and the House, and a wonderful, wonderful pro-life governor. The people of Iowa have spoken clearly on that. Pro-life is important, and protecting life is their
It's
number
not life, it's a fetus.
We know that there are many ways to decrease the number of abortions happening, but abortion bans do not do that. They put the lives of women and the wellness of families in jeopardy. I'm deeply disappointed that today Iowa will become one of the most restrictive states in the nation with a 6-week abortion ban. When I am taking care of women...
Right, it is a 6 week. Yep. Oh, God. This is the place that we're living in. It's about to get much, much worse, right? With the Chevron doctrine now essentially negated by the Supreme Court and the other sort of rulings that have been getting made by the Supreme Court. It's just not we're not going to have a good time, right? If they continue, the fact is we should be, in this case, we should be, right, as it relates to abortion, we should be deferring to the scientists, to the gynecologists, like this woman right here in front of us talking, right? We should be deferring to experts. Instead, we're deferring to theocrats, and, it's a bad plan, right? We're just unraveling any sort of advancements we've made in society. They're all about to get, not all of them, but a lot of them are about to get unwound. Because if they're just going to completely ignore the science in every single case that comes before them, they're going to try and play amateur scientists, a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court. It's not going to be good. Make America 1832 again. That's absolutely what it feels like we're heading towards right now. All right, now to continue talking about abortion, but to also talk about this most recent debacle, aka the first 2024 presidential debate. This is Democracy Now! I can't remember who they even had on, but we're about to see.
I want to go to the issue of reproductive rights right now and abortion. President Trump takes credit for the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states. During last night's debate, moderator Dana Bash noted the federal government still regulates access to abortion pills, which are used in about 2/3 of all abortions. This was President Trump's response to whether he would block abortion medication if reelected.
And what I did is I put three great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly,
majority of people
I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have.
Him saying that is him saying basically to his voters, like, wink, wink, I believe what you believe, but I gotta get elected, so, you know, gotta lie to these people first.
They're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
So that's President Biden and former President Trump. We're joined by Michelle Goodwin, professor of constitutional law and global health policy at Georgetown University, founding director of the Center for Biotechnology and Global Health Policy, author of Policing the Womb, Invisible Women and the Criminalization of Motherhood. Professor Goodwin, your assessment of this discussion of reproductive rights.
Well, what it exposes is just the chaos that we're in the United States in the wake of the Supreme Court dismantling Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which protected a woman's right to be able to terminate a pregnancy. And At that time, there was no need to lean into exceptions in cases of rape, in cases of incest, or in cases where a woman might die. But that's where we are, including before the Supreme Court just yesterday with its EMTALA decision, which was not full, but rather something that was technical. You see Donald Trump pivoting at the end, noting that this is an election season. So he has modified his position as sending basically a signal to others in his party not to go too hardline. That is to say that Americans support reproductive freedom. Americans want access to contraception.
Exactly.
Americans want access to being able to terminate a pregnancy. Americans have heard stories after the Dobbs decision about women bleeding out, about girls having to flee one state to another in order to terminate a pregnancy, including a 10-year-old. Americans now know that there are girls going into elementary school and middle school now as mothers after the Dobbs decisions. Americans have heard stories about women in Texas, in Tennessee, who wanted their pregnancies but found that they were gestating pregnancies where there was no fetal development or fetal development, but fetuses with no brains, fetuses with no skulls, gestating deceased fetuses in states where those pregnancies could not be terminated. Americans have heard about Idaho, where doctors have had to put pregnant women on helicopters in order to get them out of the state in urgent situations such that their lives could be spared. Now, that's the result of what Donald Trump has boasted about. And as he was running for president, he said he wanted to punish women who wanted to have abortions. What we heard last night is that he's talked about exceptions and that that's important to him. On the other hand, what we've heard consistently from the Biden administration is that Roe v. Wade should be codified and that that's something that Joe Biden would support. There's legislation in Congress to do that. There are a couple of different bills. The one that's received the strongest support is the Women's Health Protection Act, and that's one that he has said that his administration would support.
God. Fortunately, Joe Biden didn't really get out any points during the election in any real clarity. I think we were all pretty frustrated by that. And I think, unfortunately, we're about to talk more about it. The exceptions are bullshit. Yeah, right. Well, we all know that the exceptions take too long for them to be utilized properly, right? Like, how long does it take to prove a rape case or an incest case, or you know, like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's just a way of saying the system is so bad that we'll allow this because it really doesn't allow for anything to happen. So yesterday, the New York Times board, editorial board, called for Biden to leave the race. And earlier today, Joe Biden vowed to stay in the race. And I figure we'd talk about that.
Let's continue the
situation.
President Joe Biden is vowing to stay in the race and brushing aside mounting calls to bow out, including a new one from the New York Times editorial board this morning. On Friday, the president spoke at the Stonewall National Monument here in New York City. He told the crowd he would not be running for a second term if he didn't believe in his heart and soul, he could do the job. Trump rallied his supporters in Virginia and again questioned Biden's mental competence. Mr. Biden's lively campaign stops yesterday were starkly different from his halting debate, whereas the New York Times editorial board says, in their words, he struggled to hold Trump accountable for his lies, his failures, and his chilling plans. Torian Small leads us off at the White House. Torian, good morning.
Jeff, good morning. Hours after their first debate face-off, President Joe Biden and Donald Trump are back on the trail, with the president conceding his poor debate performance, leaving Trump's many falsehoods unchecked, and leaving Democrats rattled, with some calling for him to drop out of the race.
I don't debate as well as I used to.
Joe Biden Friday in North Carolina addressing his off night before making it clear he's staying in the race.
And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence.
The president stumbles during the heated debate, alarming Democrats and raising questions with some voters about his future.
I was rooting for President Biden. I just don't think he did what we needed him to do.
Biden perhaps over-prepared. His voice may be lost a little bit because of preparing and preparing and preparing.
As his surrogates run defense.
Joe Biden is not a show horse. Joe Biden is a workhorse. And just continue to do the work and continue to talk to people about the work that you're doing.
Former President.
He's a workhorse. Can we stop saying he's a workhorse, please? It's not a good. It's no good. None of us have actually seen this workhorse at work. We've seen ice cream horse. He loves ice cream. I know that. We've seen a guy who's struggling to make speeches right now. And everyone's saying he's just way better behind the scenes. But I don't know. It's just getting a very, very tired sort of line policy. What about it? What about? I'm not sure what that means. I mean, he's had some good policies, at least as it relates to Americans, to some degree. Although his last 8 months, not just as it relates to Gaza, have been pretty shitty. He's also done some. He's been frustrated because he just keeps trying to push towards the center, and it makes it impossible for me to like argue for him because he just keeps also doing terrible things like shutting down the border. Like, you know, obviously we've talked about his fucking Gaza policies ad nauseum here, like literally every fucking day. Would have been nice to hear him, I don't know, attempt to assuage some of those concerns in this debate. Did not do that. Let's just quickly look at a couple of other things about this. Reaching across the aisle to insanity. Exactly. Rather than trying to shore up the left, he did the opposite. He ignored the left. He's made that clear time and time again. When he said that he did not give a shit. And he didn't say literally don't give a shit, but he said that no, the protesters will not change his mind in any way. It's basically, you might as well say I don't give a shit at that point, right? You know, people who are using their free speech protesting, telling them that you don't give a shit, those people, that's not the way to do it, right? All right, let's just look at some of the most recent polling on this.
The fallout from the American presidential debate continues. New polling suggests more Americans, and importantly, more Democrats, are beginning to sour on Biden's ability to carry out the duties of the job for another 4 years. Reggie Cicchini joins us now with the latest. Reggie, tell us more about this polling. What does the new data show?
Well, it suggests that there are some people that may be turned off by the performance that President Joe Biden gave on Thursday night in a debate that has been widely panned by some lawmakers, by editorial boards, by journalistic outlets. Look, the numbers here are important. Before the debate, 27% of likely voters had said that Joe Biden, his mental fitness was either excellent or good. And 90 minutes later, after that group was polled again, the number had fallen to just 20%. Yeah,
it's not great. I'm going to point out this as well. That's not a great starting number. If only 27% of people think that you have excellent or good mental fitness as you're, asking for them to vote for you in the presidential election for the highest office in the country, just not a good starting point. But for it to go from 27 to 20%, that's like 30% of those people right there, right? Or, well, 25% of those people. Like, of the 27% itself, not of the whole, obviously. At least I think, obviously. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to affect the election one way or the other, but this is the exact opposite of what was needed right now, right? Like, he needed a boost already. He's been behind in the polls now for quite a long time, and this is not going to help with those polling numbers, right? The fact is, like, where is the boost going to come from for Joe Biden? I'm just not seeing it yet. And that's a problem. Only less than 5 months out from the election, right? All right, let's go to this next one.
According to a flash poll after the CNN debate, 67% of people who watched said Trump did a better job than Biden. Some media outlets today saying Biden's performance was so poor he should reconsider his run. Let's bring in pollster and communications strategist Frank Luntz. Frank, great to have you. Great to see you. So it's been almost 48 hours, but it doesn't feel like the dust has settled. Where are you at this hour?
It is not settled. And I'm getting calls and emails and texts and WhatsApp. What's going to happen? Is Biden going to stay? And I think the answer to that is pretty clearly yes. Did this make a difference? And the answer to that is pretty clearly yes. But the difference is going to be small, and here's why. Only 4% of Americans are truly undecided. People will make the claim, I haven't made up my mind, but they will have decided against Joe Biden or against Donald Trump. They just don't know if they're going to vote for the opponent. That's not an undecided voter. It's just 4%. But where this does matter is those key swing states, and in particular, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They matter most. At this point, Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden among the other close states, Georgia, North Carolina, that you showed right there, Arizona, and Nevada. But that doesn't take him to 270. He has to win one of those three. And I believe that when the polling is done next week, Trump will be ahead in Pennsylvania, will be ahead in Wisconsin, and will be ahead in Michigan.
I was shocked to hear Frank Luntz, of all people, to be coming out here and criticizing Joe Biden, just considering how pro-Israel Joe Biden has been. If you're not aware, Frank Luntz worked for pro-Israeli, what's it called? I want to say like it's a think tank, but I don't think that's quite the right terminology. But like a pro-Israeli policy as it relates to U.S. policy, and like it's like a lobbying group, I think, technically. The dude, like, it's weird to hear him coming out and criticizing Joe Biden, considering how much I'm pretty sure he loves Joe Biden. Could be wrong on that. The DNC never proposed a replacement, so here we are. It's a great point. Also, Joe Biden said that he was only going to be a one-term president. So, in fact, I feel like it really starts with him. But yeah, however, that doesn't mean that things can't change. Which is why we're going to look at this next video. This is from Reuters from 7 hours ago. How Democrats could replace Biden as their nominee. This is them discussing exactly what processes could be taken to present different choice. I think we already know most of them.
Worried Democrats, alarmed by President Joe Biden's debate performance against Republican rival Donald Trump, are openly questioning whether he should be replaced as their candidate in the 2024 election.
The panic has continued.
The University of Virginia's Center for Politics director, Larry Sabato, said the process to replace a presidential nominee is clear, but it wouldn't be easy.
There is only one way for a nominee to be removed, and that is for the nominee to decide not to run before the convention.
Right. We already know that one.
Open it up to let the, in this case, Democratic National Committee set the rules for the convention, which would be an open convention with declared candidacies in advance, probably support from a certain number of state delegations. So the convention, in a sense, will serve as a primary electorate that has already voted. In order for Biden to step down, you would have to have a union of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and they would have to all agree that he has to go in the interest of the country and in the interest of defeating Donald Trump.
That's going to be a tough group to crack.
And try to convince him, and he will be tough to convince. And they'll also have to try to convince Joe Biden.
You have to get all 5 of those idiots together on the same shit? What was the list? What was the list again? Obama, President Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and who?
And they would have to all agree that he has to go in the interest of the country and in the interest of step down. You would have to have a union of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and they would have to all agree that he has to go in the interest of the country and in the interest of defeating Donald Trump. They would have to go to the White House and try to convince him, and he will be tough to convince. And they'll also have to try to convince Joe Biden, and that may be even tougher.
Sabato has a long list of possible replacements, but said there is no obvious top choice.
Kamala Harris has to be on the list because she's the incumbent vice president. I don't think she would be a particularly strong nominee.
No.
Governor Gavin Newsom, not just because he's governor of California, but because he has access to tons of money, which the new nominee would have to raise very, very quickly. There aren't many people who could do it. Governor Gretchen Whitmer would absolutely be in this mix, Michigan being one of the key swing states. Governor Pritzker of Illinois, who could self-fund. Governor Andy Beshear in Kentucky. Kentucky's deeply red, but Beshear's managed to be elected twice, which isn't easy for a Democrat in Kentucky.
Choices.
Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who's become very popular very quickly.
Wow.
An articulate guy who comes across well and fits Pennsylvania, a key swing state, probably better than Joe Biden does, and certainly better than Donald Trump does.
So far, Biden says he isn't going anywhere. His campaign held an all-hands-on-deck meeting a day after the debate to reassure staffers that the 81-year-old was not dropping out of the race, according to 2 people familiar with the meeting.
If this were anybody else but Donald Trump as the Republican nominee, this race would be over.
Now, the fact is, technically, the electors, I believe, could, also get together and choose to, I think it'd do a vote of no confidence. I believe that's a thing that could be done. But I find that hard to imagine in this moment. And the first step in this whole process just needs to be Joe Biden himself deciding that he's not the candidate to go forward. And unfortunately, right now, at least what we've seen in his most recent appearances is that he thinks that he, no big deal, brush his knees off and just move forward doing the same thing he's been doing. I don't like that strategy at all, of course. I, would have liked an actual primary, like a real primary where they, I don't know, did debates and things like that. We did not have that. it was essentially accepted by the vast majority of Democratic voters that it was Biden was the guy, and it was just sort of pushed. He's just been, you don't just, he's an incumbent, right? And so it's just really frustrating that it's like still left to him. But of course, that's basically where it's at right now, unless somehow the Democrats, the DNC, decides to get together and say this is a bad strategy. But when have they ever done that? Hillary Clinton, I would point out, is the most recent glaring example that comes to mind. All right, now let's move on from the election. I've had enough. Had enough for today. You need to see how things pans out here. Let's move on to this. This is from a day ago from the Associated Press, where a former homeless person and a Seattle city attorney react to the Supreme Court ruling
issued
on homelessness.
Frankly, we expected it. I'm still heartbroken. Cities should be pushing on the federal government to, instead of pushing on the federal government to let them sweep more, they should be pushing on the federal government to fund housing, to change housing policies, to have universal health care, to do all the things that will lower homelessness nationwide.
Well, today's ruling is important because it restores authority back to locally
This lady is an ultra Karen right here.
elected leaders, for them to make the decisions about what is best for their unique communities in relation to the homelessness issues.
I was in a car.
Just as a translation, in case you didn't quite pick up what she's saying that this is great because it allows cities to kick homeless people out of their city.
Incident in the year 2000, when I tried to go back to work, I couldn't manage the job, so I lost it. Essentially, I had no income. I lost my apartment that I was living in. I lived in the shelters that were available, and I was lucky enough to get into one of the transitional centers. Back then, homelessness it was big, but it's not as prevalent as it is now. Now there are way too many people on the streets.
I mean, yeah, homelessness is now illegal. I mean, essentially, it seems to me that it also just kind of makes being a human being illegal, right? For if you're in a place too long as a human being, you're illegal. And my guess is that this will be also used against protest encampments and things like that. Undoubtedly, not that they have needed some sort of a new legal route to get those done, but just saying. Either way, it does criminalize poverty, 100%, without an actual solution. And that state attorney or whatever that was cheering this shit, I'm sure she's not thinking about how these people will be, essentially forced out of there to go somewhere else. Then they'll be forced from there to go somewhere else, potentially, because now the laws are like this until somebody actually makes a housing for them, fixes the housing crisis, amongst other things, like our medical system. This is just going to be a problem that just gets shifted from one place to the next, and it's people who are going to suffer. The poor, the homeless, right? This is not It's not, honestly, not rocket science at all. It's just building houses, building building housing, right? It doesn't have to be, single family homes. It could be apartment buildings, whatever it is. It's really not, it's not that complicated. But, getting the funding for that is much harder than getting the funding for bombs to go kill people in the Middle East or wherever else. Fund, U.S. military bases across the world. Those tax dollars, no problem. We got those to the tune of what? Is it $900 billion now? It's almost $1 trillion a year. I know it's getting too close to that. It should have been going the other way for the last 20 years, but no. Okay, now to talk about housing really quickly. This is a story we actually looked at yesterday, but I want to look at again. I do this sometimes, and this one is definitely a big change that could, in fact, signal changes in the housing market. Could perhaps, I maybe am being overly optimistic, but this is from CBS News. U.S. home sales see record drop.
Fewer people are buying homes in the U.S. That's according to the latest report from the Commerce Department. Sales of new single-family homes dropped unexpectedly by 11.3% in May. That's a 6-month low. The National Association of Realtors says home contract signings have also hit a record low. So joining me now to break this down and say...
Okay, so not only have sales gone down by double-digit figures... over the last 2 years, inventories have in fact ticked up over 150% from where they were. Might even be closer to 200%. I forget the exact number. I don't have a figure or calculator in front of me. I just looked at a graph earlier. But yeah, the housing market is in fact shifting to some degree. People are no longer willing to pay the exorbitant prices to the same degree that they were say a year or two ago. Well, yeah, interest rates have been high for a while now. And yeah, these many homes that are on the market are staying on the market longer, selling for under asking, having to amend their asking prices, and so on and so forth. And it may have effects down the line. And of course, this is basically me having hopes for some sort of a trickle-down effect, which I really hate, but considering nobody seems to be doing anything about anything regarding this, I mean, we do not see enough stories about fixing the housing crisis. So I feel like I'm left being optimistic for market forces, which is just the worst position ever. Oh, God, we need to be way more in control of our government than we are. All right, let's talk about how we could be envisioning and or building, changing our current cities. You're gonna watch a few snippets from this video from Our Changing Climate from a day ago. What does a solar punk city look like?
Could you jump up?
Almere and Cape Town, two cities worlds away but connected through the looming threat of climate chaos. Two cities wherein communities are rebelling against the capitalist notions of growth, accumulation, and profit-seeking to shape an urban space that caters to people and the planet. These projects are an urban rebellion of sorts. Insurgent designs and practices that buck the trend of the inhuman urbanity that we trudge through every day. but the work done in Almere looks vastly different from that in Cape Town. A gap that reveals the inequalities, geographical differences, and local needs. Today, we explore the future of cities, unpacking how capitalism has corrupted our current urban spaces, what future metropolitan landscapes steeped in solarpunk and eco-socialist degrowth politics might look like, and how now-topian projects like those in Almere outside of Amsterdam and the Empower Shack project in Cape Town might chart a path towards actually achieving a zero-carbon and just city for all. This video is sponsored by Ground News. Stick around to the end to find out how you can get 30% off Ground News. The capitalist city of today is one of immense inequality, environmental destruction, and isolation. In Los Angeles County, as the rich enjoy mansions and gated communities, over 75,000 people must live without shelter, forever under the threat of police raids and violence. In New York City, rent continues to skyrocket, leaving many unable to afford a roof over their head. Meanwhile, in Chicago, the city cleaves itself into segregated neighborhoods. And like dirt in an already festering wound, air pollution pervades these cities. In the US alone, outdoor air pollution kills 88,400 people annually as cars and roads dominate communal space. Streets and business high-rises slice up parks and green spaces. And the few public spaces that do exist are underfunded, leaving very few options for casual gatherings outside the home. Often meeting up with friends or being in community requires some form of consumption and payment, whether that's buying drinks to sit at a bar, tickets to go see a movie, or buying a coffee to sit down in a cafe. This is what a city run on capitalist logic looks like. One where the city becomes more about generating profit and wealth than about the people actually moving through that city. This is especially true in the imperial core, where real estate has become the way to store and generate wealth. The very roofs over our heads have been transformed into speculative investments for capitalists. Indeed, 2/3 of the world's net worth is now in real estate. In US cities like Detroit, Phoenix, and Atlanta, more than 40% of home sales in 2022 went to people who were buying secondary or investment properties.
Wow. So half of the homes in Detroit, Phoenix, and Atlanta are just empty because people are just holding them as investments. This is this is ridiculous. This is just ridiculous where we're at right now. And yet we have, you know, people in power, like that woman we were listening to earlier, who's some sort of attorney for the state or the city or something like that, you know, cheering on kicking homeless people off the streets and not at all considering how, you know, it's us who are creating the problem. And by us, I mean, you know, broadly, not us. Well, at least I think not us. The more affluent.
And thought leaders in the business world drool over investment properties and the wealth generation of rental buildings.
For most people who want to invest their money and build wealth, real estate has so many tax advantages that make it very unique and profitable.
1/3 of my net worth is in real estate. Right now, it's all single-family dwellings because I can get rent for them.
So our cities and the buildings...
Hold on. So I had to do some research after I heard that one. He said 1/3 of his net worth is in real estate. I looked it up. Hold on. Do I have it? No, I don't have it here. Either way, I think it was from a few years ago, according to one of these sort of celebrity net worth sites or something like that. Actually, it might have actually been Forbes. Either way, it said that he was worth something like $400 or $500 million. So 1/3 of that is what, $150 or $60 million, right? So that's $150 million in what he said, I believe, just now, are single-family homes because he can rent them out. Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Piece of Shit. I hate that guy. And Shark Tank is a terrible, terrible show. Like, it basically made... the premise of the show of Shark Tank is come groveling to a bunch of overly moneyed assholes and beg for money and tell us your idea, right? Like it was a wild premise to be. You never saw it. It's a terrible show. Terrible. Hold on. Can't watch this whole thing. Either way, so that's just one man, and if you extrapolate that over the hundreds and hundreds of billionaires that are in the United States, you start to think about, okay, exactly how much real estate is being held by the 1% being left empty, while there are people who are homeless that they also like to complain about every day. And why aren't we doing anything about that? This is a literal, like, hellscape that we're living in right now. A completely preventable one with obvious contributing factors and obvious solutions. At least to me, they're obvious. I don't know. Maybe I'm not being explicit enough. Take away the real estate. All right. What else? I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember where it was I wanted to go to next. I'm monologuing too much to also focus.
Populations have more than quadrupled since 1970, and by 2050, 6.7 billion people will live in urban areas, with 90% of that growth projected to take place in Africa and Asia. For the first time in history, the majority of the world's population lives in...
Yeah, it was the premise that the meritocracy was real, but that even if you did have merit, you also needed to have the approval of billionaires for that merit to be, ever to come to fruition, right? We can't start a business, right? Or we have a business but we need more money, and right, instead of going to, banks, which were supposed to be lending to everybody, they were given trillions of dollars in bailout money, if everybody remembers, to make sure that they continued giving loans to the very people who are going on these shows, right? Like, think about it. Right, the Federal Reserve said, okay, we're going to bail out all the big banks and the insurance companies, all these people, because they're needed for society, right? We need them to help invest in small business and people who are having hard times and things like that, right? Instead, what are we living with now? Highest interest rates ever on the credit cards that you get from those same institutions. The inability of most individuals to go out and get personal loans that aren't like literally predatory, and it's just that was the thing about it that really, anyway, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going back
urban
to the
centers. And 1 in 4 of those city dwellers live in informal settlements, commonly known as slums. Here, the inflow of refugees of agrocapitalism, of capitalist climate disaster, and more erect and maintain settlements on the edges of unwanted land of urbanity, often situated on dumping grounds or land that is deemed otherwise undesirable.
Oh yeah, stock buybacks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the banks are willing to lend for those kinds of things.
For real estate developers, these informal settlements must not only face the brunt of local environmental destruction by way of water, air, and soil pollution, but also weather the fury of climate change-fueled natural disasters like hurricanes and floods. Like in the case of Cyclone Freddy ripping through Blantyre's Durande Township, a storm that wiped away countless shelters and displaced over 19,000 people. And because residents are deemed to be illegally squatting on this common land in the eyes of the capitalist state, it can be hard to leave even with the threat of hurricane or wildfire looming. Because without the security of land tenure, there's no knowing if you will be allowed back to your home once you've left it. So in both the imperial core and periphery, capitalist forces pervade and erode the strength of urban centers. They leave us exposed to environmental and climate catastrophes through a lack of infrastructure, segregation, and an unnecessary emphasis on fossil fuel guzzling cars. For more than a century, the city has been built to...
You own an LLC? I mean, I'm not here to criticize you for having an LLC, man, and making $38,000 a year. We're talking about the 1%. The 1% of people, the 1% of corporations. Those are the people that are oppressing us, not you and your LLC. Okay? I mean, I have a lot of criticisms of capitalism, but we all have to also somehow try and survive within the system until we somehow change it, right? But, you know, that's not... when I criticize, you know, corporations, that's not what I'm talking about, right? I think that people should be able to get loans for their small business ideas. That's what I was saying, right? Yeah, I think we all know that not all companies are created equal. I'm not saying that. I mean, like, let's be real. Like, not everybody is given the same chances, right? Some businesses are started by, you know, the children of billionaires, and some are started by people who grew up in poverty, right? And there's some that are started by people in the middle. And the people that I'm mostly here to criticize are, you know, the ultra rich that are the most powerful, right? I'm not here to criticize people who don't have, you know, some effect on society. At least a meaningful, like some sort of large effect. I'm not saying that you're not, whatever. I don't know. We're getting too much in the weeds with this. What was I saying? All right. I need to go to the next spot here. Oh, Megastar told me to hydrate. I better hydrate. Okay.
The visions of Solarpunk paint a luscious optimism, ones of thriving cities interconnected with their surrounding landscapes. Here, Luc Choutin envisions dense apartment complexes full of natural light that interweave with the verdant landscaping and public transit below. Or here at Munchan, sees a city built around pedestrians and greenery rather than cars and industry. Or even here in the streets of Wakanda, where public transit gives way to a bustling market of people and community. These are just a few quick glimpses of what urban centers could be. But what are the actual blueprints for these cities? What are its politics, and how might these cities function? Developing the answer to these questions not only offers us a light in the dark of the shadows of our current capitalist trajectory, but also helps solidify what we're actually fighting for. Of course, these are utopias of sorts. The scaling up of these visions risks the ever-looming threat of capitalist co-option, which I'll talk about a little later in the video. But for now, what would a solarpunk degrowth and eco-socialist oriented city actually look like? We'll begin with sustenance, food, and water, the fundamental building blocks of humanity.
Yeah, we
For
need
many
those.
in the imperial core, sustenance comes from the
live.
grocery store and the tap. What we eat is heavily distanced from the farmers growing our food. Our food is presented to us wrapped in packaging and placed in stores hundreds of miles away from where a farm worker toiled to harvest that lettuce, for example. And within those stores, food prices seem to increase every year, leaving many struggling to put dinner on the table. And in the US, the quote-unquote good food is often cordoned off in wealthy white neighborhoods where companies can make the most profit, while those without means must live miles away from any form of fresh produce and groceries in a system of food apartheid. To add insult to injury, many urban communities must face down lead and toxic chemicals in their pipes, rendering their water undrinkable. In short, clean water and delicious food becomes inaccessible. This is unacceptable. The cities of the future must rebel against this urban agro-capitalist design. So an end to food apartheid must be facilitated not only by free, accessible, and delicious community-run food stores in every neighborhood, but also by a blanket of communal food gardens and farms across the cityscape. Much like Havana's organoponicos and vegetable gardens that satiate a substantial amount of the city's produce needs, the gap between the rural farm and the urban streetscape must be crushed. Alongside beautiful rooftops and streetscapes of vegetable gardens supplemented by rural farming cooperatives, physical infrastructure and plumbing will need to be repaired and replaced to ensure safe and clean drinking water to every single person. Food and water are basic rights. They should be free and accessible regardless of who you are, what you do, or where you're from. Ultimately, sustenance in this liberatory city should be guided by care, not profit. Stores, bodegas, and markets will no longer exist to generate wealth, but instead function as a vital backbone for thriving neighborhoods, offering themselves up as a place not only to find food, but also with the help of communal kitchens and dining spaces, as a place for friends and family to gather and enjoy life. And in the process, food and water become tools of solidarity.
Yeah, and we really do need to have more control of these things, and unfortunately with the capitalist system that we currently have, doing this kind of stuff either requires you to own your own land or to get the permission of the capitalists from which you rent that land. Right? And honestly, the transition to this is the most difficult part for me to visualize, to be honest. This sounds like communism, not the post. Yeah, it does sound a lot like communism, doesn't it?
Employing ambient air and thick insulated windows to heat and cool houses, as well as supplementing that passive design with solar panels or even small wind turbines on the roof. Some buildings might shelter co-housing communities with individualized apartments designed for personal aesthetics, communal cooking and recreation spaces to bring people together at the end of the night, as well as care facilities located in the building like doctors' offices and daycares. Other buildings might house just 2 or 3 units for bigger chosen families. But crucially, all of these structures are owned by the neighborhood or the community, not landlords. Ideally, this would allow for much more autonomy for interior and exterior design, making the home a place that's not just comfortable, but also enjoyable to live in. Because an eco-socialist and solar punk city demands not just housing for everyone, but good housing for everyone. And outside the house, the future city needs to foster true freedom, liberation. This could look like so many different things, like a complete abolition of policing and instead investing in community care and mediation. It could look like the development of green spaces and communal activities on every city block, with some parks acting as sponges for inevitable flood events and heat waves supercharged by climate change. Free museums full of art, tool sheds, free libraries of both books and unwanted goods. There would be community cinema on apartment blocks, and play areas filled with trees and activities both for children and adults. And of course, all of this built environment will go unused if we are stuck working every day, all day. So a reduction in work time is crucial. Production must move from creating goods for exchange to focusing on producing materials for use. And in that process, we can spend a lot less time toiling away at the desk or the assembly line and more time enjoying life. But this
enjoying life? What? That sounds crazy. Must be nice to pretend with millions/billions of dollars about a place you live. Fact is yeah, that's what we're doing here. We are in fact doing what do you call it? Oh boy. Doing a thought experiment, right? Momentarily, we are considering the future, right? We're considering how we might where we want to land, right? I'm not saying that all of what is being said here is necessarily feasible. I'm just saying that we should be thinking about it and how it might be made feasible. Because a lot of this sounds pretty fucking great to me, I'm not gonna lie. Yes, ideal city planning. Yeah, I figured by, discussing it, pondering it, we might knock loose some sort of creative thoughts on how to move forward towards an ideal future. Not this them? Which them? The crazy them?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Okay, actually, it is 2 hours in. I think we're like halfway through the number of videos we have today. Well, I hope you've all been enjoying the show so far. If you haven't already, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. If you've already done those two things and you would like to help me even further in what we do here at the Galactic News Network, well, you got one good option. You can become a Galactic patron. And not only would you be helping to support this show, you'd also be gaining access to some super sweet space benefits. Write that down. Alright, chat, just gonna take a quick space intermission, so do what you gotta do. If you gotta use the space latrine, grab yourself a drink and or a snack. Do those things, and I'll be right back. Wait, what did I... Son. Ah, the Galactic Lake. So relaxing. All right. What do you call it? I know there's a word for this. I can't think of it. Whenever they flash the lights during like at the very end of an intermission, there's a word for that, and I can't think of it. But this is me flashing the lights at you. Galactic news. All right. What are we going to start with here? The second half. Well, we still got a bunch of stuff to talk about as it relates to the environment, so let's get to that.
Climate and everything are the same word. Could you drum up?
First, let's just talk the United States and the current heat situation here more broadly before we get into specific shit. This is CBS News from 14 hours ago. Actually, you know what? No, we're gonna skip this. Take it back. We're gonna go to this one first. Just realized this... It's deleted. Why is this deleted? People suck. Okay. Whatever. Let's go to this one instead. As a wildfire has broken out in Arizona and is now causing evacuations near Phoenix. Phoenix shouldn't be a city. It's honestly kind of true. It's kind of true. At least in terms of, you know, access to water. If I'm not mistaken, they have to have their water pumped in from a great distance away. I could be wrong about exactly the distance, although it didn't say an exact distance. Ah, God. So yeah. Fires in Arizona. Just look at one more video of this. This is from 8 hours ago.
Homes were evacuated Thursday night as a large bushfire spread to 3,200 acres in Arizona near the Boulder Heights community. Eyewitness video shot in Maricopa County shows firefighting aircrafts and large plumes of smoke. The so-called Boulder View fire was fueled by high winds and dry conditions, and authorities believe it may have been caused by people. On Friday, fire officials said it was 0% contained.
0%. That's not good. Drone video shot in Maricopa County, Arizona showed burnt fields and smoke was still rising from hotspots after a wildfire prompted evacuations. The so-called Boulder wildfire, which was fueled by high winds and dry conditions, has consumed 3,200 acres near Sedona. Pause.
Fire burning in Pueblo County just...
That's not pausing. Alright, fine. We'll just go straight to this. We're already on it. This is in Colorado. We actually looked at this yesterday, but I figured we would just remind ourselves of what's happening. Basically, like one state away.
It's getting bigger. Officials say that fires burn more than 1,100 acres now. Still no containment. And it's burning about 3 miles northwest of Beulah. Hundreds of firefighters and crews are out working it. Right. Officials say firefighters are planning to burn out some areas between the planned containment lines and the fire's edge. They're hoping to reduce the risk to the town of Beulah. Evacuations are still in place for homes along Middle Creek Canyon Road.
It's a cactus fire. Yeah, when the cactuses are burning, that's when you know you got a problem.
This is the Mississippi River.
It is the Mississippi River. This is, in fact, the Mississippi River. You know, my timing is fucked right now. The floors of the forest still aren't clean, Bob. Okay, yes. I take it NCC stream is over finally. How long did you go today? 7 hours? Wild. I feel like I go too long when I hit 5. I'm like, oh my god, what have we done? Okay, yeah. We've been talking about this flooding that's been going on in the Midwest. This is discussing a specific problem as it relates to Minnesotans who, as it turns out, lack flood insurance. I think the number that they say is like 3% of people in Minnesota, or at least in the county that's affected, like have flood insurance, and the rest of the people don't. And we've seen the pictures. It's not good.
St. Paul, Minnesota. Tonight, it is expected to crest at over 20 feet. It would be the 7th worst flooding of the Mississippi on record. Minnesota has experienced flooding for days, prompting President Biden last night to declare a major disaster for people in the town of Waterville. The damage and the costs are adding up quickly. CBS's Tom Hansen reports.
Despite its name, the town of Waterville, Minnesota has never seen anything like this.
Did you ever think that this would happen? No.
No, not for a second.
Situated between two lakes with a river in between, the community received as much as 18 inches of total rain over the last week, submerging much of the town where nearly 2,000 people live.
Our electrical panel is in the basement, so that was our biggest fear, is our electrical panel going underwater and shorting out everything.
Nicole Rosas and Chad Doring lost a dog and tens of thousands of dollars worth of property in the floods. There was no requirement to purchase flood insurance when they bought their house 6 years ago, so they decided against it.
We could have gotten it, but there was no call for it, you know, like there was no threat of a flood, and it was so expensive at the time. We just were like, no, that's insane.
According to data from FEMA, homeowners in Waterville pay an average of $941 per year on federal flood insurance. There are only 33 total active policies in the town. Aaron Cocking is the president of the Insurance Federation of Minnesota.
The enrollees in the National Flood Insurance Program in Minnesota over the last several years are down, and actually down considerably, which I think is...
Yeah, well, no kidding. The insurance people, their regular insurance rates are going through the roof, right? And so, yeah, and also for people who are technically, like, what's it called? Like on a mortgage, right? Those insurance rates, I mean, those interest rates are also up, so those expenses are all up. And if you're not in an assumed area of flooding, then I can see why you might not have gotten it. But now, a lot of people are kind of fucked. More beachfront property. Wow. Insensitive. But funny. But also, hopefully, that's not true. But yeah, no, it's not good. It's not good. And I do hope those people wind up managing to get their lives back together. But that's just not a it's not a fun situation, or a situation that I would want to be in personally. Wait, why is this out of order? This should be over here. Okay, here we go. Sorry, chat. Just trying to fix something. All right, now let's talk about the ocean a little bit here. This is an incredibly sad story, and I don't think even 10 of these are going to be saved. But this is from 12 hours ago from the Associated Press, where apparently a rescue operation is underway after up to 125 Atlantic dolphins have been stranded in the Cape Cod area. Oh, that's just disturbing. Yeah, and from what I understand, the rescue effort is not going well. And the fact is we have another story to talk about relating to this, I believe. I am making that call on this, to be honest. I guess somebody could say that this is a different thing, but there are some things that have been happening as it relates to marine wildlife recently. I don't know exactly how long this has been going on for, but I think it's less than a couple of years. It's a pretty recent observation that's been happening. And the cause is still fucking unknown, although there are like a couple of hypotheses. This one's tough. This one really concerns me, to be perfectly honest. This is from CBS News from 16 hours ago, where scientists are now racing to find the answers about deaths and illnesses affecting Florida fish.
Welcome back to CBS Saturday Morning. Scientists are racing to figure out what's causing strange behavior and even deaths among different types of fish, including endangered sawfish that started in the Florida Keys. As CBS's Christian Benavides explains, there are now reports of this mystery illness in other parts of Florida, including as far north as Tampa.
A mystery beneath these crystal blue waters in the Florida Keys is deepening. What's causing fish to act like this, spinning, thrashing until they die? Dr. Michael Crosby with Moat Marine Laboratory is among the researchers diving for clues.
No promising lead. If anything, the mystery just continues to expand because the report range of this abnormal behavior in fish species is spreading.
It's upside down.
Initially just in the Keys, Dr. Crosby says while there's been fewer sightings, there are now reports further north and on the Gulf Coast. First noticed in the fall of 2023, the abnormal behavior has been reported in over 50 different fish species. Earlier this year, endangered sawfish exhibited symptoms. With a dwindling population, more than 50 are reported to have died from the unidentified illness so far.
Biologists believe the actual number of sawfish deaths is higher than what they've been able to confirm.
In April, Moat rescued a 6 sawfish in the Keys.
This is where he was kept.
Yeah, this is the first stabilization quarantine facility.
It was transferred 400 miles away to this facility near Sarasota.
There was nothing that stood out in that blood work that would be causing the symptoms.
It never gave us an answer of what the actual problem was that caused all of this.
Researchers believe the behavior is likely neurological. The sawfish responded to treatment until 21 days later, when it didn't.
He deteriorated very quickly.
It was humanely euthanized.
The water is received in bottles.
Researcher Jennifer Toyota has been looking at water samples and tissues from other spinning fish.
Did anything stand out?
So, as some other researchers have found, we have also found cyclotoxins in the tissue.
Toxins potentially caused by harmful algae on the...
The fucking algae again, dude. It's the fucking algae. It could be, at least. I mean, it's not a guarantee. But it's the only strange thing that they seem to have found from their analysis of its body. Now, obviously, there could be some sort of other cause to it, but we have been talking about how algae is affecting our ecosystems, right? How it's affecting our health. And I could be wrong about what I'm saying here, but they were also kind of alluding to it there, and it makes sense considering what we've heard recently. Whoopsies, I hit the wrong fucking thing. Whoopsie. There we go. Oh, you're right. Bob makes a good point. Now it'll be up to judges because of the end of the Chevron doctrine. So judges will solve this. I have supreme confidence in that. Get it? Supreme confidence. Alright. No more puns. No more puns for the rest of the stream. I can guarantee that. Ah, God. Alright. Let's go on to this. This is a... Oh, God. This is going to be another pun. You know what? I should never have agreed to not doing puns. I'm already going to break it. This is a developing story about a number of storm systems currently growing in the Atlantic, currently headed in the direction of the United States / the Gulf of Mexico. And I believe there's already been one has already been named as a hurricane, so this would be the first hurricane of the season.
We're coming on this afternoon with a very dangerous situation that's unfolding for the Windward Islands, places like Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, with Hurricane Beryl, which has just become a hurricane this afternoon, expected to quickly intensify and be a major hurricane as it moves through the Windward Islands late tomorrow night and early Monday. So we've got about another day to get ready for this dangerous storm, dangerous hurricane force winds, the eye wall of a major hurricane passing somewhere through the Windward Islands as we go from Sunday night into Monday morning, the potential for life-threatening storm surge. Here you can see Hurricane Beryl has rapidly strengthened. Remember, this time yesterday, we just had the formation of Tropical Depression 2. Now it's a hurricane with maximum sustained winds 75 miles per hour. It's centered just over 700 miles to the east-southeast of Barbados here in the Windward Islands, moving very quickly toward the west at 22 miles per hour. So it's going to be approaching the Windward Islands very quickly through the night tonight, during the day Sunday, and into Sunday night and Monday. We have a hurricane warning.
You can also see, though, in that imagery, there's multiple systems here, right? You got this, but it's also led by this sort of weaker, clearly weaker storm in front of it. And then there's something happening up here, too, on the west side of Cuba.
Through the night tonight, during the day Sunday, and into Sunday night and Monday. We have a hurricane warning that's been issued for Barbados. We have a hurricane watch in effect for St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, down to Grenada. Everywhere in this hurricane watch and warning area is at risk of the eye wall of a major hurricane moving through that region tomorrow night and early Monday. Also at risk of that life-threatening storm surge. We could see surge as high as 5 to 7 feet above normal tide levels, with the addition of destructive wave action on top of that storm surge. So
that's basically like the spectrum of human heights from 5 to 7 feet. Jesus Christ. Okay. Hold on. Oh God, what's happening? Why is my stream software paused? Excuse me, sir. What are you doing? Hello?
How rude.
There we go. All right. Now let's listen to this as well, just to kind of wrap this discussion of the hurricane. First hurricane, I think.
Storms could dampen travel plans for millions from the Ohio Valley to the Northeast. And in the Atlantic, Beryl is powering up, and now a major hurricane forecast to bring life-threatening conditions to the Caribbean. Let's check in with meteorologist Molly McCullum from our partners at the Weather Channel. Molly?
Good evening, Adriana. We're gearing up for a busy holiday travel week, and Mother Nature is gearing up for a busy week of storms. Let's start in the Northeast. These storms will slow you down driving on the 95 corridor with torrential downpours, high wind and hail, but could also delay flights at many of our major airports. We'll also have to watch for afternoon thunderstorms causing problems in both Atlanta as well as Denver. Now on Monday, typical summer thunderstorms in Florida and along the Gulf Coast, roasting triple-digit heat in the southern plains and the desert Southwest, and more storms in the northern plains and the upper Midwest, adding to ongoing catastrophic flooding. Now the tropics, they're bubbling.
Oh, just what we needed. Adding to already catastrophic flooding. Oh, great. Just what the United States needs right now. Did I just hear space lightning? Well, thunder. All right. Let's go on to a couple of other things. Let's talk about France real quick as it relates to their environment before the Olympics. According to this, Reuters report, the River Seine, the population limits of that said river are well above the limits, with only 1 month to go before the Paris Olympics. The landmark waterway is meant to be a swimming venue at the Olympics in a month's time. Really? But concentrations of enterococci and E. coli... Wait. I'm sorry, hold on. That first word kind of threw me. Enterococci? I don't know how to say that properly. And E. coli bacteria are still well above legal thresholds. That's not good. Paris's mayoral service as water pollution levels spike during periods of heavy rain. Sure, blame the rain. Okay, that's fine. The sounds are vivid. I feel like they just stuck a microphone in the water. Or like a GoPro or something. That's probably what it is. Probably a GoPro. Okay, talking about water, but in a different way. Let's look at this from Al Jazeera English from 11 hours ago, where apparently severe flooding in Afghanistan and landslides in Nepal left those two Asian countries in disarray.
Naimat Alizada is struggling to cope. 5 days ago, floods swept through the Abdana village here in the Bamiyan province of Afghanistan, killing 8 members of his family. He says it was the first such severe flooding they had seen.
There was complete chaos. Children were crying and women screaming with fear. The water was about 10 meters high. I tried to pull out some of those stuck, but couldn't, and the floods took them.
Most houses and shops in the remote village were destroyed, while the raging waters swept away cars and mechanical equipment. This school was damaged and its container with all school supplies was washed away.
The first thing we need is shelter. We need clean drinking water, then financial support, because we have lost whatever we have worked for and earned all of our lives.
In Nepal, heavy rains triggered landslides, killing at least 9 people on Saturday. Landslides, floods and lightning have killed more than 35 people across the Himalayan kingdom in the last 2 weeks.
Yeesh. We didn't even see those landslides, I don't think, when they happened. Which is why I felt like we should watch this. As I feel like we try to keep track of basically all of the really extreme weather events that are happening right now that I think we tend to argue are related to climate change in one way or another. Not always, but oftentimes. Most times. It's not going to stop anytime soon. It's a dreary outlook there, Mr. C. I'm hoping that somehow that sentiment is averted. Although I do have similar concerns. Trying to stay optimistic. We have recently come to at least one conclusion, that if we drastically reduce methane emissions, it would be good for all of us. It would be, what's the word? Reducing methane emissions would be the most effective, I guess would be the word, or the easiest one to find, in terms of reducing the amount of global warming that's happening, right? Because of how much more potent it is than CO2, and also because of how quickly it happens to leave the atmosphere, right? Not saying that's the only solution. It's but one in a piece puzzle. All right, now let's talk about methane emissions by way of garbage. This is from 4 hours ago from the Associated Press, where extreme heat in India is making garbage pickers miserable and a dangerous job worse. Whoopsies. There we go. The sack of garbage becomes too hot to hold. When I unload the garbage, I feel dizzy and my hands shake. I take lemon water with me to work, and I drink it to cool myself and then resume working. If I had an alternative job that could get me work from indoors or under shade, that would have been good, but I have no job. I have to do this work out of compulsion. I'm not even able to climb the mountain of garbage in one go. I have to stop thrice while going there. I take 6 liters of water with me. Good
Many
God,
times what happens in these solid waste landfills, because of the heat, the waste starts burning and it releases methane gas, which is very toxic. There are vehicles roaming around in the field, solid waste trucks which are there, and then the environmental heat, and this work cannot be done during night time, so they have to do this during the daytime when anyway the heat is very high.
This is
गर्मी की वजह से कुछ लोग तो काम ही नहीं कर रहे।
because of heat, a lot of people
कुछ
have
लोग
not been
मजबूरी
working
में जा रहे हैं क्योंकि बच्चों
on
की
the
भूख
garbage
प्यास
dump for
कब
the
तक
past
वो
few days.
बर्दाश्त
Some people
करेंगे
are
या
going
अपने
to
को
work
भी
because
भूख
they
लगती है वो
can't
भी
see
कब
their
तक
children
बर्दाश्त
go
करेंगे।
hungry.
तो इसलिए उनको जाना पड़ता है और कुछ लोग हैं
Some
भूख
people who
प्यास
eat
को जो
twice a
2
day
टाइम
now eat
खाते वो
once a
1
day
टाइम
to
खाएंगे,
manage.
लेकिन जितना
Spend
कमाएंगे
more on
नहीं उतना
doctors than
डॉक्टरों
they
में
do
चला
on their
जाता है।
food.
So
God.
they are among one of the most, highly vulnerable groups and highly exposed groups to the heat and also to the air pollution with limited
Gotta calm your doggo. Oh, fireworks are going off. Yeah, well, it's about like a week away. The weekend going into July 4th week, if you will. When is July 4th? Wait, 1, 2. It's like Thursday, isn't it? Whoopsies. Just clicked the wrong thing again. Alright, now let's talk about garbage and how we deal with it globally in a more detailed way. This is DW Planet A. From 1 day ago, we need to fix landfills. Here's how. Oh, tell us. Tell us, Germany. What you got for us?
On April 22, 2024, a massive fire broke out at the Ghazipur landfill site in Delhi. This was no ordinary fire, but a symptom of a much larger problem. Ghazipur was supposed to have been shut down in 2002. Instead, authorities reportedly kept sending up to 700 truckloads of trash there every day. It has piled up almost as high as the Taj Mahal. When waste decomposes, it releases methane, a highly flammable gas. So not really surprising that the whole thing burst into flames. But methane is also a super potent greenhouse gas that drives global warming. And as our mountains of trash keep growing, more and more of it's seeping out of the countless waste sites around the world. But there are ways to stop this. Food scraps, plastic bottles, pizza boxes. Think about how many things you throw away each day. Depending on how and where you live, this might differ a lot. The average Indian tosses out 500 grams of garbage every day. For the average American, it's 2.2 kilos. By the way, the US is the world champion in waste generation per capita. This pile grows along with cities and the rising standard of living. This was part of the problem in Ghazipur. In 1984, when the landfill first opened, Delhi's population was not even 7 million. Now it is about 34 million.
Wow.
The authorities weren't ready for that. And on the planet right now, we're 8 billion people producing 2.1 billion tons of rubbish every year.
Ugh.
According to this UN study, 38% ends up where it shouldn't. Some 2.7 billion people lack access to basic waste management services.
So no collection, no treatment, no disposal.
Aditi Ramola is the technical director at the International Solid Waste Association. She's one of the supervisors of this study.
So,
hold on. We cannot watch this whole thing. It's like 15 minutes long. Hold on. I keep clicking the wrong thing. I'm so good at this. So good at my job. All right. Let me find the spot I wanted us to get to. Yeah, I think about here.
Important to distinguish here between dump sites and landfills.
They are very different things. A dump site is where there is absolutely no environmental control.
When it rains, the water filters through the waste and forms leachate, a potentially toxic cocktail of many heavy chemicals and bacteria, among other things, that soak out of the trash.
It's leaking into the environment either through your waterways, your soils, or your air by open burning. And so all of these are emissions that are ending up in the environment that are harming human health. It's harming the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Did it again. Did it because I switched things around on my software, and now it's in a different spot. Too used to it being in one place. One day I'll get used to it. I do like the way it's set up better. Okay. But there's definitely more to talk about with this. And like I was saying earlier, with regards to methane, we got something that we could do about this kind of stuff. Which kind of ties in with some other stuff we were talking about recently. Today.
Straight away.
Today.
However, not all solutions in this field need to be so high-tech. The IPCC's recommendation to reduce methane emissions from landfill is much simpler and more straightforward. Reduce the amount of organic waste in them, because the methane emissions from landfills are produced when organic matter decomposes underneath a pile of garbage without oxygen.
If we had taught our younger generation that waste is not waste, it is a resource, probably this situation would not have arisen.
This is Sharad Kale, a scientist who specializes in waste management in India.
Being a warm environment, our environment is very good for degradation of the material. So if you do it in a scientific way, in a structured manner, I think we can actually stop the methane emission fully.
In countries like India, where around 50% of the garbage is wet waste, avoiding it in landfills can be really effective, and some places are being quite successful in implementing this policy.
Right. So, like we were talking about earlier with regards to solar punk stuff, having people being more, what's the word? I guess industrious, not really though, but as it relates to their own food cultivation, right? If we were to stop sending all of our organic waste to dumps where it sits in an anaerobic state, has no oxygen, and therefore it creates methane because it's broken down in a completely different way than if you compost it, right? And if we set up systems to deal with this kind of stuff on a societal level, right? And you know, people don't even have to necessarily be using it in their own places, right? If we just accommodate for this kind of stuff by having, you know, bins specifically for organic waste, which go to a processing plant where it gets used in field somewhere, something like that could in fact really drastically reduce the methane emissions from at least this particular source, which is huge, right? Because the amount of methane that's coming from garbage dumps is absolutely massive. Right, we heard them earlier. What was it? 2.1 billion tons of trash a year?
Take Mysuru, for example. With a population of more than 1 million, it produces between 400 and 500 tons of waste daily. The authorities designed a decentralized system in which trash gets collected, segregated, and composted inside their neighborhoods. Here it is important to remember that composting is primarily an aerobic process with oxygen, where microorganisms break down organic matter. It can release small amounts of methane if it's not properly done, if there isn't enough aeration. That is why quite often you see people turning the compost regularly. In Mysuru, about 50% of all waste is composted. For that, the collector goes from door to door. If residents don't properly separate their trash, they'll be fined. Officials say only 5% of the trash goes to landfill. Their goal is zero waste.
Zero waste sounds phenomenal.
Management is like no waste should go to the plant or a landfill to the incineration plant. So we are completely managing the waste which are receiving from different wards of Mysore City Corporation.
The compost produced is sold to local farmers in the horticulture department. When you look around India, this may feel like a drop in the ocean, but it is a great example that shows it can be done. Composting also sorts out another huge problem. Almost 1/3 of the country's farmland suffers from soil degradation, partly due to the heavy use of chemical fertilizers. Now, organic compost is being used.
So this would also solve another problem, huge problem that we're talking about regularly these days. But we're losing 4 football fields worth of land that is farmable every second, which equates to us losing the majority of farmland in the next 50 years or so. And a lot of that has to do with us over farming, but it also has to do with sea level rise, among other things. But the extraction of resources without the replenishment of them is in fact also greatly contributing. Something we could be really easily solving, I feel like. Chemical fertilizer is big oil. Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's big business. But we have to threaten some big businesses to at least survive as a species. That's just
It's science.
yeah, it's science. Keep doing that. All right, what is next? Actually, is there more I wanted to talk about? Because I can't remember. Hold on. Yeah, I think we might watch a piece of this right here too.
Going up in the pyramid is not always easy. Closing dump sites and making landfill better is a challenge and can be a long process, but it can be done. Like in Rio de Janeiro, it once hosted Latin America's biggest dump site, Jardim Gramacho, which received over 80 million tons of garbage in 30 years. The surrounding mangrove forest was devastated by its leachate.
Oh, God.
Então, a partir de 1997, foi...
And the stream software is doing horrible things again. Thanks. Thanks, Streamlabs, for being great today again. I know. I'm trying to switch the video. It won't let me. It won't let me do it. Ugh, it's pissing me off. Come on. Oh, there we go. It's working. Nice. Go, Web, go.
In other forests. And now, Rio's waste goes to a modern landfill outside of the city. The site captures most of its methane emissions. According to the operator, it generates enough energy to power a city of 90,000 residents. It is a modern engineered landfill, which costed around $90 million. But that doesn't mean that the problem is solved. In nearby Gramacho, there are still illegal dump sites. And even in the restoration project itself, there were problems with leaking leachate in 2014, which now seems to have been sorted. This approach isn't cheap and it's not perfect, but it does have a lot of potential. Look at this graphic. It shows regions that still have a huge number of open dump sites.
Also happens to be some pretty impoverished places. Aside from Oceania. Although, no, also Oceania. I think, I'm trying to think of where does that actually... Does that also contain Malaysia? I always forget. Yeah, Central America and the Caribbean. I mean, the Caribbean's got its own problem because they're all on islands. Sub-Saharan Africa, Central and South Asia. Always trying to solve our problems with the capitalism. A lot of raptors in chat right now, I'm seeing. Getting very raptory in here. Alright, right, let's go to space news. Space news time. One quick brush with the Boeing Starliner crew here. Let's see what's up with these folks.
Tonight, high above Earth's atmosphere, 2 astronauts are waiting to find out when they can return home.
Let's go forward into Starliner.
At the time, NASA astronauts Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore gave this tour of Boeing's Starliner. Docked since June 6th at the International Space Station, they thought they'd only be there for days.
Just super happy to be here on the International Space Station.
But now, after a series of delays, a planned 10-day mission has become a weeks-long stay, with a return date unknown. NASA fighting back on suggestions that the astronauts are stuck.
I want to make it very clear that Butch and Sonny are not stranded in space. Our plan is to continue to return them on Starliner and return them home at the right time.
It was just under a month ago when
Wait,
Boeing
what?
Starliner...
When at the right time? I'm not sure that doesn't make sense. I think he was trying to say something else, then realized it was going to sound bad.
Launched into the skies for its historic test flight, but helium leaks and thruster issues since are delaying its return. NASA, Boeing saying that to leave the ISS now would mean the evidence would burn in the atmosphere upon re-entry, so they need time to study the root cause, and they insist time is on their side.
Time's on their side. Okay, if you say so. Everything's fine. They're definitely non-stuck, everybody. Okay. Alright, now let's talk about global news. And first, we're going to start with some global pride news. Let's start here. This is the Associated Press from a day ago. This is an interesting story. It's not, it's not about pride festivities or anything else. It's just someone's story. Eli Malik lost a fight, but won the war by becoming Cuba's first transgender athlete.
Desde el minuto
From first minute that it was accepted that a trans
que
person
una
was
persona
competing,
trans estuviera compitiendo, que después se creara
any later
polémica,
controversy
bueno,
created is fine.
ahora hay que ver cómo
Now we must
ajustar
see how
en
to
el
adjust the
engranaje.
gears of the machinery.
Voy a
to
seguir
continue.
enfocándome, quiero llegar a
I'm going to
más,
keep focusing. I want to go
a
as
lo más
far
que
as
yo
I
pueda.
can go.
Yo no
I
tengo
don't have
límite
any
ninguno.
limits.
En lo personal es un reto.
Personally, it is a challenge of the
El trabajo
collective
colectivo
work.
es un reto.
It is a
El
challenge.
hecho de
The fact of
aceptación
acceptance
de
of the
los
young people, of
jóvenes
the men
por ser una
accepting him
forma, los
and see him
hombres
as what he really
aceptarlo
wants to
y
be,
verlo como lo que
and making
realmente
his dream
quiere
come
ser
true
y
is a
hacer cumplir
challenge.
sus sueños es un reto. Es una vida normal.
My life is
normal, con
normal
las
with the same worries that
mismas
every Cuban has.
con las mismas cuestiones, preocupaciones que tiene cada cubano. No me marca la diferencia.
There's no difference.
Yo
I'm a very
simplemente
independent person.
soy una persona muy independiente. Hay hombres trans que tienen
There are trans
comportamientos
men who
X, Y,
behave
Z, ¿me entiendes?
X or
Pero
Y,
la
but
sociedad
society
tiene que
must
entender
understand that there are trans
también
men who
que
don't
existimos
behave
también los hombres trans que no nos
the way that
comportamos
we've been taught all our lives.
de la forma que nos han enseñado toda la vida.
I just thought this was a nice story here. Unfortunately, he's having some struggles with being accepted, but is continuing forward, and I thought that was a slightly inspirational story. For sure. Alright, let's go now across the pond to London, where the sun shined on tens of thousands of revelers joining the annual Pride Parade.
Pride is a time for everybody to be able to express themselves and feel safe doing that because everybody is here.
I think it's very important, the awareness of you know, who you love is who you love.
Mm-hmm. Is that Disney?
We want to show as many people and take as many photos as we can and videos and content, put it out to the world and say like, hey, this is normal. This is what the world looks like now.
Okay, now
we've gone under.
Stop. Okay, there we go. Now we've got some stuff to talk about while we are still in the UK. I thought that we ought to talk about a couple things here that are relating to the current elections that are happening in the UK. If you're unfamiliar, there's a new party in the election called the Reform Party, which was formerly UKIP, aka the brains behind Brexit, if you will, if you can allege that there were any brains involved in that plan. But I would not be guilty of alleging that. But let's talk about a couple things that are going on in the party, which are pretty disturbing. Watch a couple different pieces here, both from Channel 4 News. First one, Undercover Inside Reforms Campaign, Evidence of Homophobia and Racism.
We've gone undercover inside Nigel Farage's Reform UK campaign in Clacton, and we recorded extremely offensive language, including this canvasser saying people seeking asylum should be shot.
Get the young recruits there, yeah, with guns on the beach, target practice, to shoot them.
Racist language was repeatedly used. Here, directed at the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak.
That's horrifying.
It was good, is he?
And homophobia from Farage's inner circle.
You see that degenerate flag on the front bonnet? What the old Bill doing promoting that crap?
Jesus Christ.
My object is for us to become the voice of opposition.
He's promised a political revolution.
Thank you, Nigel.
Nigel Farage claims to speak for the forgotten many, the self-styled leader of the People's Army.
They've opened up the borders to mass immigration like we've never seen before.
This is the image Reform UK wants to portray, and yet some of the party's candidates have been accused of racism and extremism. It's often dismissed as banter, but how does the party really operate? Media access is carefully controlled, so we've been undercover to find out.
Hello.
Hiya.
How are you doing? All right.
Good luck. I'm fine.
This is what we found when we joined his troops inside Farage's Clacton campaign.
If you've got a razor, feel free to grab a razor. Once you're ready and you're happy, just set off on your adventures.
At this meeting, they're assigning teams to go out leafleting. We meet Andrew Parker, who describes himself as a property dealer.
Yeah, I've got a car, BMW, brilliant. Let's go. What's your name, fella? Andy. Andy.
Mr. Parker tells our investigator he's known Farage for years.
Yeah, I met him in a restaurant in London. Yeah. I said, well, because we're quite a laugh with him. Yeah. Do us a favour, get your arse out and put yourself up for candidate. He's rung me a couple of times, I've texted him, so he's getting on.
We're assigned to go out canvassing with Mr. Parker. In the car, there's a pep talk about what to say on the doorstep.
The immigration thing, use the word illegal, emphasise illegal, especially if you open the door with a bunch of
The Reform canvasser then gives his view on Muslims and what the party would do with mosques.
Sick, mate, sick mother. It's a cult.
Wow.
So if you don't know about Islam, it's the most disgusting cult out. We're kicking all the Muslims out of the mosques and then serving them into Witherspoons.
sorry that you all had to listen to that, but you know, in case you weren't aware, reform has got some problems. I mean, I think, at least me personally, that came to me immediately, right, when I heard that UKIP was rebranding itself. I'm like, oh, we just need a new name for racism now, right? Because, I mean, what else was Brexit aside from saying, you know, Britain should be for the British, if you will, and that meant if you weren't of a particular persuasion, ethnically, if you will, you know, you didn't deserve the benefits of British money either, you know, in the European Union, or you shouldn't have the ability to come to Britain without, you know, it's just, there's a bunch of problems with the, I'm not gonna get fully into all the Brexit bullshit, but I think you all probably know to some degree about Brexit as it is. So let's just go to this other piece real quick here. As in response to this, and this, by the way, this video goes on for 10 minutes, and there's more examples of this, but I figured we would just kind of move through this kind of quickly, as it's already 3 hours in. The Labour Party and the Tories somehow have decided to both criticize Farage for allegedly not doing enough to tackle racism in the Reform Party. Now, I would say that both of these parties have some things to deal with in their own parties as well, so it's a bit like throwing stones in a glass house, but I figured we would at least kind of look at this. I mean, they're not quite as blatant as this, so I'm not going to say it's the same.
The Reform leader, Nigel Farage, has been criticised by Labour and the Tories for not doing enough to tackle accusations of racism within his party. Reform confirmed it had kicked out 3 candidates who reportedly published racist and offensive remarks on social media. Reform also said they're reporting Channel 4 News to the Electoral Commission. A spokesperson for Channel 4 News said, "We stand by our journalism." And a warning, there is highly offensive language in this report by Jane Dodge.
On Armed Forces Day, the 2 men vying to be the next Prime Minister wanted to focus on defence spending.
I'm certainly going to get one of these.
Rishi Sunak told former soldiers at a cafe in his North Yorkshire constituency about his plans for a veterans bill. He said it would improve services for people like them. He didn't speak to journalists, but his security minister did.
And as a veteran myself, you know, I know that looking after veterans is one way of making sure that you're standing with soldiers, sailors and air personnel who are serving today.
Sir Keir Starmer was in Aldershot, the home of the British Army. He dismissed Tory suggestions that Labour would be a threat to national security and said if he becomes Prime Minister, he wants to match Tory commitments on defence spending.
Wow. Keir Starmer keeps making just the worst decisions. First, he was purging the left. Well, not first, but at least that's one of the things he's been doing. It's also been, you know, very pro-funding what's been happening in regards to Israel getting Western money to continue its ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And to be like, yeah, we're going to match the conservatives on defense spending. That's the opposite direction I think that Labour should be taking. Really makes the Green Party look like a good option. Now, I can't vote in that election, but I've heard a lot of people talking about wanting to vote Green. Hold on. There was another piece in this. I can't remember where it was. Hold on a second. You know what? I think we're good. Reform racist. Everybody else finger wagging. But yeah. Not a lot. Not a lot of substance, honestly, considering Labour purged two people of color from the party who happen to espouse pro-Palestinian positions. Might also be considered an example of racism. Might want to turn it inwards a little bit, but just thinking out loud. All right, now let's go to Paris, where they are also celebrating Pride. Let's see what people have to say there. Paris Pride revelers fear for their rights and safety if France's far right wins the parliamentary election.
Oui, le parti, le Rassemblement National et ses alliés à l'extrême droite et à droite sont des partis qui sont fondamentalement haineux et en particulier vis-à-vis des minorités LGBTQIA+. Donc oui, on a peur pour notre accès aux soins, on a peur pour notre sécurité de tous les jours dans la rue, on sait qu'on sera beaucoup moins protégé, on sait que notre place est vraiment menacée. Ouais.
Place will wait.
I'm worried about LGBTQ.
I got distracted.
LGBTQ rights. I'm worried about being a foreigner on a titre de séjour. I've called the government asking, can I apply for citizenship now, because I have no idea what's going to happen with the next elections. I think if the Front National is in charge of France, they'll ruin it.
Not gonna lie, France Pride looks pretty lit. They appear to be having a lot of fun out there. Okay. What next? Alright, let's just go a little bit east to Germany, where a different group gathered in the streets to protest the rise of the far-right AfD party. Jesus Christ. That's not necessary.
Sie sich friedlich gegenüber den eingesetzten Polizeibeamten. Verhalten Sie sich Pfefferspray gegen sie anwenden. Nochmal der dringende Appell an alle Personen.
Interesting that the police are willing to enact violence to protect the far right from protests. Oh no, not protests.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed!
Yeesh. We are seeing too many recurring themes that are not fun across the world, whether it's, you know, heavy-handed policing against people protesting legitimately good to protest things, whether the environment's breaking down or war is breaking out, whether LGBTQ rights are being oppressed, rights in general being pressed against women, against just, I mean, pretty much anyone that isn't, you know, a, like, either rich or heavily religious person or whatever else, you know. This is becoming more and more that, you know, just everything is just in this terrible spot right now. We gotta do something about all this. We really do. Here's something we probably shouldn't be doing about things, but in fact are. This is in Estonia, a little bit further east, I think. Southeast from Germany? I can't remember exactly how it geographically relates to Germany, but it is closer to Russia, where the United States are, well, holding military drills. Yeah. Yeah, Estonia's northeast, not southeast, of Germany. I'm just looking at it on the map right now. And it actually happens to share a border with Russia, south of Finland. While we're here, we might as well, I don't know, launch some rockets. Yep. Continuing escalations and shows of military force in Asia on both sides of the continent. Well, I guess technically Estonia counts as Europe. But yeah, it's on the right there on the border. Not great. Not great. Where next? We're gonna go southeast from Estonia now, crossing Russia and then going south to Georgia. Just wanted to talk about this one again because this one is kind of concerning. Georgia's parliament has introduced an anti-gay bill, which has instilled fear in activists in the country. Oh wait, before we do that, I forgot. I have a second Estonian story. Shocking. 2 stories on Estonia. We haven't talked about Estonia once in the last 3 months. 4 months, whatever it's been. Now we're going to do it twice. Because this is actually great news for Estonia. This is from 11 hours ago, where Estonia's party has nominated the climate minister as the new PM.
Climate and everything are the same word.
Estonia's ruling party tapped their climate minister for the Baltic country's top job of prime minister. The ruling centre-right Reform Party chose Kristen Michael to replace outgoing Kaja Kallas, who is the EU's new foreign policy chief. Michael was nominated following a closed-door meeting by the party's governing board. He has been...
Now, unfortunately, this isn't going to have huge worldwide effects. Estonia's greenhouse gas emissions are dwarfed by the countries we're usually talking about. But could be good for Estonians, at least, and incrementally for the world. We need more people that are knowledgeable of these sorts of things in power, unlike the Supreme Court, who seems to think law school gives them, what do you call it? Expertise in all scientific matters. That's what we're living in right now. Just heading into the exact opposite direction. But let's go now to Georgia to talk about this, which we talked about yesterday, once again, just because it's a pretty concerning trend for this particular country.
Activists around me have been attacked physically.
This is Tamar Jekeli, the director of Tbilisi Pride in Georgia, where the country's parliament gave its initial approval on Thursday to a set of bills that amounts to a sweeping suppression of rights for LGBTQ+ people.
It's been almost every day that somebody gets physically beaten. Yeah, it feels quite scary.
The bills could outlaw pride events and public displays of pride flags, and includes bans on the, quote, propaganda of same-sex relationships and gender-affirming surgeries. The package was proposed by the ruling Georgian Dream Party and approved by a majority of deputies. It must pass 2 more readings before becoming law. Parliamentary Speaker Shalva Papuashvili has said the...
Yeah, that's really not good, right? For fuck's sake. Why does my mic sound crinkly today? Does it sound crinkly for other people, or is it just me? Just getting weird sounds out of it. Is that better? That actually sounds way better. Ah, there we go. Yeah, that's an improvement. It's at least an improvement for me. I don't know about you. Maybe it's... Didn't notice any crinkling? Okay, that's good. This is good. It's weird. I'm definitely still hearing it, and I don't know where it's coming from. Is that better? Is that better? I don't know. Oh, God. It's just frustrating the shit out of me. I have to investigate it later. Alright. Now let's go on. Let's go to Kenya. I totally forgot. I should have put this back further. I feel like I'm going backwards. But I figure we should definitely talk about this because we were talking earlier about the protests that happened. We talked about how some of the protesters were killed. And this is the Associated Press with interviews with parents sharing their pain as the first of the victims of the protests in Kenya are being buried.
Tushajionea kwa ma-TV ile watu wamekatishwa maisha yao.
We'd already seen on television that people had their lives cut short. I cannot blame myself for taking part in the protests. It was his right, and protesting does not mean that you should be killed. Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. He has died a hero. He was not out there fighting for himself. Ibrahim was out there on behalf of many Kenyans. He was not alone. All of them, mostly people the same age, were out there fighting for the whole of Kenya. Yeah. Well, Kenya has been struggling a lot with its
South Korean
colonial past and how to get their society both modernized and also treat humans with respect and dignity and equality and things like that. And the youngest have been, in fact, struggling quite a lot as they try and find their place in a changing society. Okay, now to talk about this, or we 3:15, 1:54 in the morning. I guess we could keep going a little bit. It is Sunday. It's the weekend. I guess we'll look at this one again, because this is another sort of a similar story to the Georgian parliament situation, where they're making it illegal to be in a same-sex relationship, essentially. This is in South Korea, where LGBT couples would like to help boost South Korea's low birth rate by adopting and or by having artificial insemination, and yet they are not allowed to under South Korean law.
Kim Eun-ha and Park Cho-hyun wants to get married and have children. It's a plan that fits in with the government's ambition to boost the country's birth rates, which currently stand as the world's lowest. But same-sex marriage is illegal in South Korea, and doctors refuse to perform artificial insemination on women without a male partner.
저희가 만나는 게 재고 이렇게 출산율도 낮은데 너희가 아이도 안 가지고 이렇게 하는 건 죄라고 말하는데 아이를 갖고 싶어도 가질 수 없는 상황에서 가지지 못하게 하면서 그거를 죄라고 말하는 건 조금 모순적이라고 생각을 해요.
The couple plan to go to Australia to get married, even though the South Korean government will not recognise their union. Efforts to legalise same-sex marriage have been successful in Taiwan and Thailand, but not in South Korea. The LGBT community there...
Return to Jesus, good God. Oops, wrong one.
Jesus, I say that.
160 subs. Yes, we are heading in the right direction. That is for sure. Yep. Still not 500. Need to get there. Really do need to get there as soon as possible. Not blaming anybody but myself, but it's becoming more and more difficult to look at that number. Although it is easier to look at 160 than whatever it was at like last week. I honestly want to attribute it to mostly MIDI doctors and him posting links in Majority Report, but it could be attributable to anything. Could be attributable to any numbers of factors. Did do the live debate this week. I have no idea. Alright, let's go on to the Middle East here. Talk about well, let's talk about Israel and what they've been doing. Mostly. Almost entirely. But one story here in Iran, which has been going on for a little bit, but we haven't been talking much about. If you recall, Iran's president died in a, was it a helicopter or a plane crash? I can't remember what sort of aerial vehicle it was, but it was definitely one of the two. So they've been having a presidential election in the country, but it has had, I think, one of the lowest voter turnouts in a place where they already have very low sort of turnout, I think, usually, and it's always pretty, what's the word? One noted, if you will. This is this BBC? I guess that's BBC.
Iran's Interior Ministry has confirmed that a runoff presidential election will be held on Friday after none of the candidates in the Snap poll secured 50% of the vote. The reformist Masoud Pezeshkian, a heart surgeon, won the highest number of votes. One of his hardline rivals, Saeed Jalili, came second after taking an early lead. The election was called after the death of ultra-conservative President Ibrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash last month. The four candidates were all vetted by an influential committee of clerics before they could stand. Turnout was about 40%, according to an Interior Ministry count, the lowest on record since the 1979 revolution, raising questions about the legitimacy of Iran's system of government. Well, let's speak now to
Japan has the same issue. It's not just Japan either. It's many countries across the world. It's not just Asia. There's places. I mean, honestly, the place where that's not really seeing this is Africa, right? But like in Western countries, it's happening. Even in the United States, if it wasn't for immigration, it would be even lower, right? But yeah, the curve is flattening in terms of birth rates across the globe to some degree, excluding Africa.
Siavash Ardalan from BBC Persian. So we now know, Siavash, that there will be a runoff on Friday. So what does that mean? How will that take place?
Well, the second round of election will always traditionally, be held a week later. As it stands now, from the 24 million votes that have been counted, 10.5 million went to the heart surgeon, to the pro-reform candidate, and 9.5 to the far.
And the thing about the birth rate curve, since we're on this topic, before we get into this, I'm going to go back because I've just been thinking about this the whole time. Since we're talking about this, this is one of the best or the most obvious and pressing sorts of things that is what do you call it, in terms of capitalism, right? This, in terms of needing to change systems and all of that, right? Because capitalism can't function without growth, right? And if populations are diminishing, that creates a huge problem for capitalism, right? And I don't know if boosting birth rates is necessarily what the world needs, right? And so I do feel like a lot of people who are pushing for birth rates to increase are, in fact, people who believe in the capitalist system to a certain degree, right? And I'm not saying that lower birth rates will solve capitalism either, or the environmental problems that we're dealing with, but I think it's one of those things where we're you can't force births, number one. That's ridiculous. Although we're trying to, I guess, in this country. Ugh. But you get what I'm saying, right? Anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm going into the weeds on a completely different topic I wasn't even expecting. But yeah. B-Cat has an idea? What's your idea, B-Cat? What is the idea? Doth thou have ideas for me? Are the birds or squirrels out? I think Jerry's been talking about feeding birds and squirrels quite a lot lately. Well, you get back to me on that idea. I'm gonna try and focus on this Iranian election real quick. Go, please.
One of his hardline rivals, Saeed Jalili, came second after taking an early lead. The election was called after the death of ultra-conservative President Ibrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash last month. The four candidates were all vetted by an influential committee of clerics before they could stand. Turnout was about 40%, according to an Interior Ministry count, the lowest on record since the 1979 revolution.
Lowest on record in the last 50 years, huh? Yeah, it's weird that you have to have your presidential nominees all be vetted by clerics first. It's a weird concept to me. Perhaps it's one I should get more used to, considering the direction of the United States lately, but Jesus. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah, let's go to this. Oh, I guess it's literally right there.
Ardalan from BBC Persian. So we now know, Siavash, that there will be a runoff on Friday. So what does that mean? How will that take place?
Well, the second round of election will always traditionally, be held a week later. As it stands now, from the 24 million votes that have been counted, 10.5 million went to the heart surgeon, to the pro-reform candidate, and 9.5 to the far-right candidate, Saeed Jalili, and 3 million to the center-right candidate, which will be the kingmaker in the second round of elections, because those 3 million people who voted for the center-right candidate, we have to see whether they will choose a pro-reform and a moderate candidate who is in support of relations with the West and trying to resolve Iran's nuclear deal and the sanctions, those devastating sanctions that are crushing the people inside Iran, or whether they will choose to vote for Saeed Jalili, who was a former nuclear negotiator, very hard-line, tough politician who doesn't even believe that sanctions are an issue, who thinks that the country has enough potential to advance on its own through alliances with Russia and China without any help from the West.
One of the major talking points about this election is the low turnout, of course.
That's been the main takeaway from this election. This is a historic event, unprecedented. The lowest turnout last time around was 48%, and now this, on the back of huge, massive nationwide protests 2 years ago over the death of Mahsa Amini, over the issue of mandatory hijab, which led a lot of Iranians to, soul search. What do they really want? What kind of a society do they want? Whether they want to live with a, clerical theocracy, which, dictates foreign policy and their lifestyle, or whether they want to completely change the system and go for something, more secular and more democratic.
Yeah. More secular does sound good. I think I mostly agree with what you're saying, Geode. People who want to have children should be able to have them, absolutely. But in no way should we be forcing people to be having children or having some sort of freak out over lower birth rates. The only reason for freaking out over lower birth rates really is that bites into the system and the way that things are supposed to function in terms of never-ending growth. But, there needs to be some level of, I guess, skepticism about that. Like, about the need to continually be making everything bigger, right? Do we need that? I don't know. What if we just maintained a population rather than continuously growing it? Because the fact is, we're not doing well with the resources we have right now. Like, we're seemingly making all the worst decisions with the resources that we have right now. And I'm just not convinced that feeding a system that's not working for us by creating more people who would need to be served by said system. You know what I'm saying? I feel like until we fix the system, we shouldn't be concerning ourselves with whether or not the birth rate is higher or lower. Although I do I think that the argument that those two women in South Korea were making, totally fair, right? Because South Korea's government is currently complaining about the low birth rate, and if they wanted it to go higher, they could stop marginalizing LGBT people. That would be a good step. But no, that would be That's too much, man. Okay, now on to talking about Israel. This is from 7 hours ago, Euronews. According to them, senior Hamas officials are saying that no progress has been made in the ceasefire talks with Israel.
I don't want reality.
Seriously though, how many weeks has it been now since President Biden made that speech? It's been I feel like it's almost been 3 weeks. Maybe I'm overestimating. Maybe it's not been that long. 2 weeks? Somewhere between those two things.
A senior Hamas official has said that no progress has been made in ceasefire talks with Israel over ending the war in Gaza. Speaking at a press conference in Beirut, Osama Hamdan said the group is prepared to deal positively with any ceasefire proposal that brings about an end to the fighting. Efforts by Arab mediators supported by the United States have failed to strike a conclusive cessation of hostilities, with Hamas and Israel blaming each other for the lack of progress. Hamas says any deal must include the full withdrawal of the Israeli military from Gaza, but Israel has only agreed in principle to temporary pauses in fighting until Hamas is completely eradicated. The Hamas-run health ministry says almost 38,000 Palestinians have been killed in more than 8 months of fighting.
Yeah, I think we know it's higher than that, probably. A fair amount. You think Bob C. went to bed without telling us? Probably. Probably true. Okay, let's look at this real quickly, because in case you missed this yesterday, this is going to tie into something else we're going to talk about. This is from Al Jazeera English from a day ago. They talk about Israel's Smotrich, Bezalel Smotrich, who promised that a million new settlers would be coming to the West Bank. Israeli far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich is vowing to bring... You know what? This is too loud for my ears. Go down. There we go. He vowed that he would bring 1 million occupied West Bank settlers as part of a settlement legislation plan. We announced a month ago that for every state that unilaterally recognized the Palestinian state, we will establish a settlement. Sorry, it's moving too fast for me right now. We announced a month ago that for every country that unilaterally recognizes the Palestinian state, we will establish a settlement. 5 countries made that mistake, so we will establish 5 settlements. This is our response. The Palestinian state is a threat to the state of Israel. We bring 1 million settlers. This is our response to the enemy. The legislation of the 5 outposts has long been a goal of Israeli settlers. Smotrich said that Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet approved the plan. The Prime Minister's office has not yet released any statement on that. It includes sanctions on Palestinian Authority officials over what Smotrich says are their anti-Israeli democratic measures. If I was a Palestinian official, I would be anti-Israeli as well. No kidding. And I mean... certainly against everything that Israel is doing right now. Oh my god. Just wild. This is insane. 1 million settlers, 5 new settlements. Just because, what? Spain, Finland, Slovakia, South Africa, and who else? Recognized the Palestinian... Oh no. Now I need to make 5 new illegal settlements in the West Bank. Right. Okay. Well, let's look at this. This came out earlier today from 5 hours ago. This is also from Al Jazeera, discussing the alarms that have been raised across the occupied West Bank after people hearing about this plan from Bezalel Smotrich. I'm not shocked to hear that at all.
Taibe is one of many Palestinian towns that will be affected by the Israeli government's decision to officially recognize 5 illegal settler outposts and expand existing settlements in the occupied West Bank. In Taibe, though, people are more concerned about another Israeli decision. That ruling stripped the Palestinian Authority of its civilian powers related to construction and zoning in 1/5 of the occupied West Bank. The Israeli cabinet says this was done to combat what it terms illegal Palestinian construction.
The goal is for us to leave, but where will people go? We're rooted in this land. This town existed before Christ and will continue to exist, God willing.
More than half the population of the occupied West Bank falls within this area, including all homes in Taibe. Already, 3 illegal Israeli settlements and several outposts have seized 14,000 square kilometers of Taibe, reducing the town to 1/3 of its size, shrinking space and choking hope. The decision was framed as retaliation for the recognition of Palestine by 5 European countries, but experts say this is a cover for a more strategic plan.
If you just look at the number of outposts slated for authorization by the government, the number just in the past 6 months is the equivalent of many years. The plan is to take over.
Experts believe towns like Abediyah, northeast of Bethlehem, is likely to be affected first by Israel's decision. Palestinian homes here are some of the more than 3,000 already slated for demolition. The decision.
This is disgusting. How can the international community continue to watch these illegal plans and settlements and all of it? It's just every single aspect of this just doesn't compute to me. Where's the rule of law that everybody's always going on about how it's something we need in the world? Meanwhile, we just continue to fund this. Ugh.
Of the Israeli government will outlive this right-wing coalition. And given the lack of international uproar, it will be up to residents of Taibe and other towns across the occupied West Bank to defend their very existence in their land. Noor Audi, Al Jazeera, Taibe, Palestine.
Okay. Well, we got a few more here. First, we're going to talk about this one. This is from Middle East Eye from 14 hours ago, where they spoke to a Palestinian-Israeli Knesset member who described Israel's targeting of Palestinian citizens of Israel. So this is discussing the problems which Palestinians who actually live in Israel proper, if you will, who are experiencing threats and violence and other sorts of shit.
Immediately after October the 7th, hundreds
of
Arab citizens were hunted down, chased by the Israeli police for writing a post or a story empathizing with the children of Gaza or saying no to the war, stop the war. Meanwhile, all those in the Jewish side who called to deport Arab citizens, to kill all Arabs, to destroy all of Gaza, to use a nuclear weapon. No one was arrested. And they were free to express their opinions. It was, and still, tough days for Palestinian citizens of Israel. We said here and everywhere that we are against targeting civilians in the south, and then children in Gaza. In the south of Israel, any child, any woman, or in Gaza, any child, any woman. But meanwhile, we are talking about more than 15,000 Palestinian children killed in Gaza. The atmosphere is ripe in order to have any of us as a target.
So this man is one of the people who, technically, we heard Israel and pro-Israeli talking heads claim to be a example of how Palestinian people are free and how they're in the Knesset. Well, this guy is fearing for his life and for the lives of people whom he associates with, and who are similar to him, right, in Israel. So yeah, I don't think that argument really holds. I didn't ever really think that argument held much water, but this is more proof that it doesn't. Alright. Penultimate video. Great job, everybody. We made it this far enough to see this story, which is definitely not a reward, and I am sorry for that. You made it this far, and you deserve something other than this, but this is just facts on the ground. This is Al Jazeera English from 5 hours ago, where at least 40 Palestinians were killed and dozens more injured in the most recent Israeli attacks across Gaza. These numbers just keep adding up. Anybody Hamas? I mean, come on. What in the fuck? Just a war on civilians.
This is Al-Shakush, a neighborhood of Al-Mawasi in the southwest of the Gaza Strip. It was one of Gaza's main bread baskets, an agricultural area once teeming with greenhouses. They now lie in ruins after Israeli forces attacked the area. My 90-year-old father, what did they do to him? Where is his head? Screams a woman slumped next to his remains. Bodies and body parts lie scattered around. Visible are the tracks of either Israeli tanks or bulldozers believed to have driven over the bodies.
We ran for our lives. Many civilians were killed. The Israeli soldiers are destroying whatever they can. Many people were torn to pieces. We miraculously survived.
In another part of Al-Mawasi, an area Israel designated a so-called safe zone, at least 5,000 Palestinians have had to flee attacks there.
Yeah, we all know that those safe zones are bullshit. They've been attacking those safe zones over and over and over again. Changing their minds about what's safe, too. They're being like, oh, you know what, we take it back. Not safe anymore. Sorry you moved your whole life, or at least what you could put on your back to come here. Because no, you can't be here anymore, because we're about to bomb it. Or you don't even get that warning and you just get bombed. Okay, we're gonna end with this video because it is the only positive piece of news that we have gotten out of Gaza in I don't know how long. I don't know what it means in terms of the broader picture. I'm certainly not I'm not prepared to get incredibly optimistic about its, you know, what it might say about the rest of everything going on, but I just figured we'd talk about this story again because, like I said, it's like the only fucking good thing I've heard yet. And it's about something you'll see. Okay. I'm just gonna go to it. This is Associated Press 2 days ago, where apparently Israel has allowed 19 children who are sick or injured to leave Gaza. 19 out of what? 1 million? There's like half kids, right? There's like a 2 million Palestinian population in Gaza.
Family members in Gaza prepare to say a tearful goodbye to their critically ill children. They are finally leaving the Nasser hospital.
What is that, by the way? What's 19 in a million? Is that like 0.0000019% or something like that?
And are on their way out of Gaza. It's the first medical evacuation since the sole travel crossing was shut down in early May.
My daughter has second and third level burns on her thighs, chest, neck, and head. And needs a skin graft.
هو
هو معاه suspected
He has
leukemia.
leukemia. He was
شخصوا على
designed
إنه
with
عنده
marrow
فشل في
failure.
النخاع.
It needs a
فمحتاج
test,
لتحليل وطبعا
chemotherapy,
يا علاج
or
كيماوي
marrow
أو زراعة
transplant.
نخاع.
بنتي مريضة
My daughter
سرطان
has
دم
leukemia,
ووقف علاجها
and
من
her
أول
treatment
الحرب.
was stopped at the
وعملنا
beginning
لها
of the war.
تحويلة وطلعت
We applied for treatment
حيطلعوها
abroad,
عن طريق معبر كرم أبو
and she
سالم.
will leave through the Kerem Shalom crossing
The
for treatment.
19 children are on their way to the Kerem Shalom cargo crossing with Israel. Israeli authorities say they will receive treatment in Egypt and abroad. The head of Gaza's hospitals say the evacuation has been coordinated with the World Health Organization and 3 American charities.
This is not and will not be an alternative to the Rafah crossing. We call on our brothers in the Arab Republic of Egypt and the free people of the world to apply pressure to help the patients in the Gaza Strip to exit and to reopen the Rafah crossing to allow them to go out for treatment.
Palestinian officials say over 25,000 patients need treatment abroad. 900.
Wait, did you say? I missed something. What are we talking about now, B-Cat? I have no idea what's happening. Ah, God. So yeah. Fact is I think everybody needs to pressure Israel to completely end all of the hostilities, all the borders they are controlling around the Gaza Strip, and what they're doing in the West Bank too, and in East Jerusalem. It's all fucked. It's all fucked. Well, we got through another one, chat. Hope you enjoyed the stream, but that's it for me tonight. Till I see you next, you stay classy, Galactic Stream Nation. What the fuck? Why isn't that working? Okay. Can't forget this. These are your galactic patrons. Gabby, Goth Dogs, Aaron W, Mitty, PB, Robot Cat, Morbius Dragon, The Anti-Corporatist, Moanoa, Nadia, Mrs. Jen, Pitchforks Dragon, Omega Star, Vincent Morales, and Donald James X. That is right. All these people here will help contribute to make this show possible. You can do the same. Just a few US dollars a month. We're going to that link in chat.